Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And man, Joe Resinello, we are going into the breach. This is a special program tonight. We're going to be going on for 2 hours. Why? All right, because the devil's at work in the midterm elections, and we have to try to confront that. And we have a great lineup for you tonight, okay? So we're going to lay the groundwork in the first few minutes. We have Jesse Romero coming on, AJ Benjamin, Rick Barrett from the Crusade channel, Catholic League is in the house tonight, and Teresa Tomeo talking about abortion in Michigan and one of the propositions that's on the ballot. Joe, I want to start this way. I think there's two things, and Jesse's going to come on in a few minutes and talk about this. I think there's a couple things that are going on in this election that I've highlighted, you and I have highlighted before. One is the left is deathly afraid of Catholic men acting like Catholic men. We've said that a million times, okay? Having said that, the left is deathly afraid of Latinos voting Republican. And let me tell you something. Jesse's going to talk about that, okay? But the bottom line is this. I'm in Arizona now. Everybody knows that, okay? Joe, the left doesn't like it, okay? In Georgia, 25% of the African-American community is giving their support to Herschel Walker. Whoa! It's like, where's this coming from? Because the left has gone off the rails and is completely psychotic. Joe, I'm going to throw it over to you on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com.
Yeah, I think the African American community has to catch up to the Latinos, but I think you're spot on, Joe. I think they've given up on the Democrats. I mean, you're seeing it in Florida. That's why George Soros is investing a lot of money in media to reach them. To be honest with you, their platform doesn't resonate with regular people. Forget about Latin America, Latinos. Forget about African Americans. How about we just call it regular Americans, middle-class Americans? People are starting to see it. You see, that's the message. I think we just got to keep banging on that drum. People have to keep saying it and pointing it out. And I think the Latinos are finally getting it. And the African Americans, frankly, it started with Trump and the ball is continuing to roll. They haven't done anything for you. And frankly, again, this is an elitist, globalist platform that simply does not provide squat for middle-class people. You could spin it any which way you want, say the Wall Street, like, oligarchs are causing the inflation. You're going to take away take away Social Security. Lies. Inflation is caused because you're not using the fuel which our country has as a natural resource. That is the reason why we have inflation. Number one. Number two, you're printing money that we don't have. And you're devaluing the dollar. I've heard that this weekend too, Joe, on MSNBC.
MSNBC is nothing but a bunch of lies. We know that.
But sometimes I want to just tune in and listen to. It's crazy. Like, it's so off the rails. And the worst part about it is people just buy it. It's sad. It really is. I almost say it's borderline illegal.
Well, let me ask you this. I want to make a quick distinction, just going back to Hispanic voters and African-American voters. I think on the one hand, with Hispanic voters, I think by the left has deliberately left them in the dark. They don't want to let's say, Latino voters know exactly what they stand for. Why? Because as we said before, they are predominantly Christian and the majority of which are Catholic. They're not going for this woke agenda. They don't want little Jose going to public school and being taught by his teacher that he could be a girl. Okay, and vice versa. So on the one hand, with Hispanics, I think they've been deliberately kept in the dark by the media, which is, I mean, Dante would have them in a particular, level of hell for doing that. I think with African Americans is bucking the African American, the liberal black establishment in America, which is very powerful. Nobody should deny the power that they have. Okay. In other words, that's why people like Clarence Thomas, Thomas Sowell, all these conservative African
Larry
Americans
Elder.
have always, what's that?
Larry Elder.
Larry Elder. That's why they've always been treated like garbage by their own kind. And their own kind is the black liberal establishment, the James Clyburns of the world and people like that. So on the one hand, it's very difficult, Joe. I'm not criticizing so much. Very difficult to buck the establishment in a particular, let's say, group of people. And on the other hand, I think with Latinos, and Jesse will talk a little bit more about this, and we have a clip later on that we're going to provide for the audience on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online, which shows that Hispanics basically say, look, I've looked at the Democrat agenda. I ain't for it. I ain't for it. No way you're selling that to me. And I think that's where they're shaking in their boots. Here we are on the eve of the election tomorrow, and they know they're toast. Joe, I want you to comment on that. Even Gavin Newsom had something to say about that. They know they're going to get wrecked. The only thing is, to what degree?
Oh, there's no question about that. Because again, I think, to be truthful with you, there's two issues that they're going to get wrecked. It's inflation and it's crime.
All right, Joe, listen, let me cut you off, okay? Because I know Jesse's got a strict time limit, and Jesse's clicking in right now. Let's bring in Jesse Romero.
Much background. I'm moving away.
Okay, Jesse, can you hear us okay?
I think I can hear you now.
All right, it's definitely a little staggered, Jesse.
I can hear you perfect.
Yeah,
so
Jesse,
I'm staggered then, huh?
Oh, no, keep talking.
It'll come in. It'll come in.
Jesse, so where are you right now?
Okay, well, I'm here in the city at the rally before the election, so people are just, there's going to be a concert. A 30-minute comes and takes the podium. It's a big gun. It's a big gun company. They have a big piece of property here. I'm going to file in right now. I did an interview with Telemundo, one of the largest news outlets in the world. Finished doing an interview with them. I start voting for Republicans this time around.
Jesse, what do you think about tomorrow? What's your view?
If everything goes right and everything, there's going to be a huge country because people are sick and tired of watching this gas prices or disorder in the streets. The last 2 years and I think that the Democrats, however, the only win is that they steal. The only way they can possibly win, because Spanish are jumping off the ship. Independence are across the country. But again, as people of faith, we got to keep begging the Lord and Our Lady, because I'm telling you now, Biden, this country, and so we're going to need peace. Everything depends on God, and vote like
Jesse, we're going to have to let you go just because it's a really bad connection. We got the gist of what you were saying. I know you could hear us. God bless you, brother, and everything you were doing. We're encouraging everybody to share this video with people in Nevada, Pennsylvania, Ohio, J.D. Vance in Ohio, and other places where the vote is critically important. Jesse, our apologies for whatever reason. We just have a bad connection, brother, but we'll definitely have you back. God willing, you come back on the show after the victory tomorrow. And we'll talk a little bit more, Jesse. Thank you so much.
You got to.
Okay, brother.
All right.
So, Joe, I mean, we got a fairly good idea. We apologize to our audience on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Yeah, I apologize for the bad connection. Jesse's in an open area. He's at a rally for Carrie Lake in Arizona. That's where I am. And the bottom line is he's talking about the Catholic vote. And Joe, I'm going to throw it over to you. Catholic vote, everybody knows. Anybody who's even non-Catholic, okay? You win the Catholic vote, you win the election. That's what it comes down to. And we're going to have on some people tonight that are going to talk to us exactly why, in our conscience, I don't think anybody, Joe, I hate to sound judgmental. I don't think anybody who's Catholic or a person of goodwill can vote for this insane slate of people that they have out there, from Raphael Warnock to Mark Kelly to Katie Hobbs and everybody in between. I think they're psychotic and they've gone off the deep end. What say you?
Well, I definitely think they're radical. But I have heard that the Catholic vote is leaning towards the Republicans. But I did hear this, and I found this to be shocking. I was listening to Mike Knowles last week, and he said that only 15% of America combined, as in both pro-choice and pro-life, vote on the abortion issue.
Right.
Only 15%, both sides. So as far as Catholics go, I think the reason why that they're leaning towards the Republicans, it's because of money. I hate to say it, but it's just the truth. Money, this is the issue. Clinton said it. He was right. People are getting slaughtered. They really are, Joe. I mean, just purely from an economic perspective, this is a significant impact to the average American, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Asian, no matter where you live. And frankly, that's why I think they're leaning towards the GOP. I wish the other issues had as much impact as they should. I don't know if they do.
I think they play, Joe. I think they play into it on at least one level. Maybe, like you said, I think that these are the most important issues because they lead to all these other disasters.
15%.
Right. But what it comes down to is, as you've mentioned a million times, well, they pushed all their chips in the middle on Roe versus Wade, and that's a loser for them. For the reason you just mentioned.
That's
for the
exactly
reason you just
why
mentioned.
Knowles brought it up.
And transgenderism is an absolute loser. Okay. That is, you want to do that to the kids. You want to try to excuse it in the state house in Michigan by giving some impassioned speech about you're not groomers. Of course you're groomers. You're trying to groom and indoctrinate little kids to think the way you do. And guess who doesn't like that, Joe? Parents. Whether those parents have a D at the end of their name or an R at the end of their name, mess with my kid, I'm going to have an issue. I do think that is playing into it, alongside the economy, gas prices, and everything else. I think a lot of Catholics are saying, who did we talk to earlier today? Or we're going to have on the Catholic League tonight, Mike McDonald from the Catholic League. We recorded that earlier today. Bottom line is, these are losers for the Democrat, the transgender. And I think that does play in to the Catholic vote. They say,
funny.
listen, yeah.
Biden recently at the White House had some TikTok influencers. I mean, I'm not involved with TikTok. I don't even know really how it works. I have an idea what it is. And he doubled down on the transgenderism issue in that session, trying to reach voters. Frankly, young people never show up to the polls. People have been trying to get them to vote for I don't even know how long, every single cycle. And that was his, if you ask me, last ditch hand out into nowheresville. But he's doubled down and tripled down on the issue. It doesn't resonate with normal people. When I mean normal people, the regular person on Main Street. Don't misunderstand my language. Normal. Regular people, Democrat, Republican. It doesn't resonate. And frankly, people have been saying this even on CNN. The Democrats have to come to reality. They have to rid themselves of this radicalization. Frankly, a loss now, a loss in 2024, and maybe 8 more years, another president, Republican, maybe they'll come to their senses. But
Or
this,
not, Joe, or not.
well, losing after a while, people smarten up. You know, you'd be shocked. Like they need someone in their own party to be the voice of reason when all is lost. I'm still not voting for them, because
Right.
as long as you're pro-choice and you're pro same-sex marriage, as a Catholic, I can't vote for you. I can't. But at the same time, people want to win, Joe. Look what happened to CNN. CNN gutted their entire staff. Why? Ratings are down. They're losing money.
Right.
Look what happened to Netflix. The CEO made a statement. He said, listen, you don't like Dave Chappelle? Don't watch him. They're losing money. After a while, you start losing loss after loss. People will come to their senses. They have to shed these ideas. They're fringe ideas. And this is not me speaking as a Republican. This is me just speaking as talk to people on your street. I live in New Jersey. When I rake leaves or when I shovel snow or when I'm outside on a Saturday and I talk to my neighbors, some of them are Democrats. This does not resonate with them
No, it
because they're
doesn't.
functioning people. They work, they pay bills, they love their kids. They're not involved in woke ideology or
But
work.
Joe, they don't seem. But Joe, real quick, they don't seem to want to take their foot off the gas pedal.
Well,
They
then they'll
keep
lose.
they keep. Well, remember one thing though. Why would they have gotten this far with their agenda? Because of weak-kneed Republicans and conservatives, who basically, whenever the left proposes a particular atrocity, okay, the Republicans go, well, let's talk about it, rather than doing what Joe and Joe would do, which is to say, your ass, I'm not doing that. I'm voting against you. I don't want to hear an argument that a boy could be a girl and a girl could be a boy. There's no argument there. Republicans go, well, let's try to talk about this. No, stop talking about it. Talking about it with them leads to compromise. And I think that's what they bank on, Joe Resinello. I think the left banks on the fact that there's enough weak-kneed Republicans that are going to give them what they want. And I don't think I'm wrong about that, because there's
No,
a lot of them.
I would
Joe.
agree. There's a lot of people, I've heard in the different political shows that will have a conversation about that. I'm just talking about people. I don't think it
No, I know,
resonates.
no. I know what you're saying, and
You,
but I
you know,
still think that they're going to try to. I still think that they're going to try to push this through as best they can. Joe, we've seen them go into the wilderness before. They've only doubled down and tripled down. Remember the Tea Party in 2010? It was a rebellion against Obama, and Obamacare in particular gave rise to the Tea Party, which, of course, the mainstream media called racist, because anything you do against a Democrat is racist, ultimately. And they lost power, and they didn't care. And they came back with a vengeance. They lost power in 2016 when Trump won and beat Hillary. Yes, he beat Hillary without the help of the Russians. Thank you very much. All right. And they took it. And then what have they done since then? They've gotten even more extreme. So, Joe,
they
something
have.
tells me that they're going to keep going.
Well, maybe. I mean, listen, I think it's a loser. Then they lose. But I'll tell you what, Hillary had it dialed in, Joe. Bernie Sanders destroyed Hillary Clinton, not Donald Trump. He forced her to go left. Hillary Clinton had it dialed in for the win. I'm just speaking purely objectively. Bernie Sanders and the Wall Street, like anti-Wall Street crowd that was like protesting downtown Manhattan, that pushed Hillary to the left, and frankly, that sunk her. Honestly, they have to get back. Again, I'm not voting for them, but the people of this country, I'll be truthful with you, Joe. A lot of people don't resonate with what we talk about. Average, normal people, like they're not abortion abolitionists. The average American is not that way. Should they be? Yes. Frankly, yes, but they're not. I'm talking again for the win. You want to win? You have abortion for the first trimester. But they're not smart. They're like, if you want to win, People will, that's palatable because America, frankly, is lost. It's lost.
Joe, if they really were smart about it on the abortion issue from a purely political point of view, they
12
agree
weeks.
to a fifth. They agree to they agree to a 15-week
100% agree with you, Joe.
ban, and abortion will be allowed up to 15 weeks in
Every state.
every state in the union.
Mississippi, Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, Louisiana, every conservative state in America, that will be absolutely bedrock legislation.
There's
But
no
that's
question.
my point. Like people, America has accepted things that they shouldn't accept, like divorce. Divorce is not a good for society. No fault divorce was a nail in the coffin of America. It was a nail in the coffin. You get divorced because you don't like someone's socks. These are things that Americans have just accepted. It's deep within the culture. Until we shed that, ultimately, we're going to have still many of the problems. And again, we're outliers on that. But I'll be truthful with you. I do, and frankly, I think so do you. You look into people. I understand. Like frankly, Joe, I'll be honest with you. The reason why people aren't seeing those things, I mean, are they living in a state of grace? To be truthful with you, are they? Are they contracepting? Like people who aren't married, are they engaging in like sexual relations with their boyfriend or girlfriend? You're not in a state of grace. You're not going to see things clearly. That's just a fact. And that's a large swath of America. People are driven through their passions, their feelings. And frankly, this is what you get.
But Joe, but here's the thing, and then we've spoken about this on the show before, all right? Because people are sold slavery as freedom,
Agreed.
but then that freedom is slavery.
Agreed.
And well, that's for people to open their mouth. Look, contraception is a losing issue politically. You mentioned that, you're done. You're done. That's just
100%.
the way it is. But on a moral level, on a cultural level, we could get out there and shout from the rooftops. Hey, if you think living this lifestyle is liberating for you, when you end up in chains, when you wake up one morning and realize that you're in chains, okay, you'll understand who put those handcuffs on you.
Joe, you're 100% right. You're 100%
Joe,
right.
another hot issue is the whole transgender agenda, okay, which comes straight from the pit of hell, as far as I'm concerned. Now, Jonathan's going to cue up a recorded interview that we did with AJ Benjamin, okay? AJ Benjamin, and you'll see in the conversation, he's a man who has same-sex attraction. He's married with, I believe, 3 children. He's a public school teacher, and he really has to watch what he says, but he's out there and he's getting into the breach, and he's talking about the dangers of this. So he was gracious enough to come on the front line with Joe and Joe. So, Joe, do you want to go to that clip?
Yeah,
Is that
do
okay?
Let's do it. I think it's
all right. So
clip.
AJ Benjamin, because this is an important conversation. AJ Benjamin, for those of you who do not know, he holds an MA in counseling with a concentration in Christian counseling from the Franciscan University in Steubenville. He's been a public school, high school teacher for 20 years and an adjunct college professor for 13 years. His website, which ministers to men with same-sex attraction, is The Silent Night, KNIGHT.net, thesilentnight.net. And he's also the author of the book, When the Sun Frees You, A Catholic Man's Journey from Healing, from Same-Sex Attraction. So welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe, brother. We appreciate you coming on, AJ Benjamin.
Oh, it's always my pleasure. Good to be with you guys again.
Absolutely. I'm going to hand it over to Joe.
AJ, let's jump right into it. The LGBTQ lobby has been influencing public schools from Hawaii to Maine across economic, levels, from the poor to the rich. What do you see and where do you see it going?
I just saw a meme the other day that I thought was really very telling. And it said, back in the old days, parents used to tell their children, don't talk to strangers. And now strangers are telling children not to talk to their parents. And I thought, wow, that is really telling of our society. And that's really what we see happening in the schools. There's kind of a subversion where it almost seems as if they're trying to get as many kids as they can to buy into transgenderism, homosexuality, whatever. Um, it's almost it almost comes across a little bit diabolical, and when you really think about what that entails, it's really school sponsored child abuse, honestly.
What amazes me is how do they think, AJ Benjamin joining us here, how do they think that, like, where do they get their stones to think that they could do this behind the parents' backs? And we've heard many, many stories. This is not conspiracy theory. This is what they say. This is what they want in legislation, okay, and public school policy. They say we do not want the parents involved. Terry McAuliffe lost the election in Virginia because he said we really don't want parents involved with decisions that go on in the schools. Now, he might have been talking on a broader level, but he was talking about this in particular. Where do they get the nerve to think that in America you could take control over what another person's child is being taught? Can you comment on that?
Absolutely. You said it. You said it before. It's legislation. It's very slowly creeping in everywhere, and these political action groups have a lot of money behind them, and they are looking to get this normalized as quickly as possible. So you'll see it. It happens all the time. The governor, Terry McAuliffe in Virginia, he was probably just not as smooth as he should have been, because a lot of places do this anyway. They're just not so, I guess, honest about it. But that is the idea, and the premise behind it is that the schools, because they're educated, know better what children need than the parents do. And I will say that in some cases they're not wrong. The reason they even get to this point is because a lot of parents are not doing parenting. So the schools simply step in. But like the schools are really an extension of government. And if you give government a little bit of power, they're just going to keep taking more and more. And where they, besides legislation, where they get their moral legitimacy is from, the people in the psychology profession, the educational profession, who are pushing that this is a good thing to do. It's a good and healthy thing to explore, which flies in the face of a lot of research. I mean, even in the realm of sexuality, I have yet to see a study that doesn't support the notion that the longer a child waits before they start sexual activity and the fewer partners they have, the healthier they will be going into adulthood. And this is especially true for women. So it really astounds me that any school, and a lot of them do it. Not just one school. It's a pretty big trend in not only even in public education, but even in some private schools and some Catholic schools. This idea that we explore our sexuality at an early age, and it's just put out there against any common sense or any research. Really, what we should be doing is shielding our children and telling them, wait. But we've gotten this idea that if we tell children it's not a good thing to be sexually active when you're that young, we've bought into the lie that the kids aren't going to listen anyway, so we might as well just tell them how to do it, and encourage them to do it. But that's just not true. But even especially in school, we know that teachers and peer groups during the teenage years are more influential, at least briefly, than their parents. So yeah, we really can, as schools, as societies, we can try to put forth the idea that it is better to wait until marriage and to not get into that sexual exploration. But we don't do that. Instead, we've got a lot of money behind a lot of politicians who are pushing just the opposite.
Thank you for that, AJ Benjamin. Joe Rossinello.
AJ, we pay a lot of taxes, all do in America. We pay taxes. And obviously, people don't like my ideology. I'm a Catholic, and they don't want it in public school. I'll be honest with you, and I'm going to be honest with our audience and honest with Joe Pasillo. I'll concede that because we live in a pluralistic society. But you have an ideology too, and this ideology is coming forth
in the place. It's LGBTQ ideology. And I pay taxes too. And I'm a Catholic. And my money is just as good as yours. Why is your ideology trumping mine? Why do you get to impose your ideology on my children that goes against my religious rights? I am a Catholic, and you're trumping my parental authority as well as my religious ideas. Why don't we just be neutral, AJ? Why don't we have no ideology in the public school? Why don't we come to that compromise? That's why I say I'll concede my point, but you concede yours. Your thoughts?
Well, that's a loaded question, because the reality is that education is ideology driven by its very nature. The question is, what type of ideology should be driving it? Traditionally, in the United States, it's been a Judeo-Christian ideology that's driven it. And really, that's what the framework of our democracy is built on. Our founding fathers, even some of whom were not particularly religious, presumed a Judeo-Christian framework for our Constitution, and for all of the other founding documents. That's why you see so many problems today, because people no longer have that Judeo-Christian foundation, as you correctly note. So what do you do if you don't have that? Really, you butt out. You teach what the kids need to know in order to be successful educationally. You know,
AJ Benjamin, let me jump in right there.
Okay.
Because the thought that's going through my head is, why do we not start a movement in this country to take all sex education out of public schools? I don't want it. It's not something that a teacher who nowadays, we grew up in a time where teachers were teachers, and nowadays a lot of them, I don't want to paint all of them with the same brush, but a lot of them, okay, they become social workers. I don't want any of them teaching my kids things that I need to be teaching my child. My wife needs to be teaching our children, okay? I want it completely out. I think that's a problem solver. What say you?
It is I'll play the devil's advocate. What the pushback from that would be, well, that's you, and you're actually kind of the exception to the rule. Many parents actually are fine with abdicating what they have to do to somebody else.
AJ, let me take it one step further then. Then make sex education an elective. Then make it an elective. And do not require students to take the sex education elective. And universities cannot hold a lack of that elective against the student. Again, I know I'm going off a little bit, but obviously we're all very passionate about it. There are ways around this. Go ahead. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, that's okay. That is correct. It really ought to be the parent's choice. In a lot of states, the parent can opt out of the sex ed portion of the curriculum. Even in the more liberal ones, they can opt out, but it's still an opt out. So you have to fill out paperwork. So the onus is on the parent to do that. It's not, as you say, just elective. And really, there would be enough parents, I think, who would elect to do that. Some people are just not comfortable with that. They would rather somebody else teach their children. And that's one of the reasons why this is getting pushed as far as it's been pushed, is that the parents are allowing it to be pushed. And we're not talking parents like you and I would be, where we are of a similar mindset. It's really parents who are not really cued into their kids. And I can tell you that is the majority. The parents that are really cued into their kids, unfortunately, are the exception rather than the rule. And I see it in two different school systems. I work in one, and my kids go to another, both public school systems. And there's very similar patterns of the parents just not being parents, just not advocating for their children. So somebody comes along and wants to do X, Y, and Z, they get some pushback, but not a whole lot. And of the ones that are actually involved, you also have a great media push that is trying to push this into reality. Because let's face it, the media is getting funded by the same places that the politicians are. So it's kind of again, it's not a conspiracy theory. You can follow the money and see where it's coming from and who's getting funded to do what. I mean, 90% of reporters are registered Democrats. Well, that means that they're going to have similar beliefs to the Democratic Party. Teachers too, very high percentage of them registered Democrats. So that is very much the agenda that's being driven, and they are people of like mindsets.
Well, that's why we're here at the front line with Joe and Joe, and that's why we're being joined by AJ Benjamin, and we're talking about LGBT influence in the public schools because we're showing no. Joe and I have said on the show, AJ, from the beginning, that what we have to start doing in this country is to tell the enemies of our families and our children, okay, the answer is no. I don't need to be, you're not going to shame me, all right, into teaching my child something that I am completely opposed to. All right. And we need to grow some stones with this and push back. We only have a few minutes. Let me hand it back over to Joe, AJ.
One last thing. I mean, it seems to me that a lot of folks in the public education arena are turning into activists. All I want is I want you to teach. That's your job, just like I have a job. And if you want to be an activist, have a podcast or run for office. Math is math, history is history, English is English. And this is my question. Everyone throws out the term science, science, science. Do people realize that people who basically prescribe to the LGBTQ lifestyle, as in they live it, have a 20-year, their life expectancy is 20 years less than that of heterosexuals. People who are transgender, it's 20 years less than that. It's in the 30s. Why would we encourage people to follow feelings that many psychiatrists have labeled as disordered? And as Catholics, we have to love and respect everybody. But it seems to me, AJ, that these lifestyles are not healthy because these people who prescribe to them aren't living long. Why would we do that and teach that or encourage that to children?
Well, it's a very simple answer. It's the one that our beloved John Paul the Great said. We're in a culture of death. We are not looking as a culture for a long life. We are looking for the good time and what feels good to us at the moment. We're not thinking ahead of children. And I think Pope Benedict said this too, and maybe even Pope Francis has said it, that a society that does not produce children is one that has lost hope. And if you look at the United States and Europe, the United States isn't quite as bad as Europe yet. The Europe's in a population decline. And it's because people are just not having children. They're contracepting or they're adopting lifestyles which do not produce children. And really why we're pushing it is because that's where we are a selfish culture and we do what we want to do regardless of the consequences for anybody else. And that's unfortunately the mindset that we're seeing more and more. That's why there's all this push to legalize marijuana. That's why we're in a feel-good kind of culture where we really don't look ahead at how our actions are impacting others or how they will affect our future and our society's future.
When you look around, AJ, if we allow this to continue, I mean, we're all just going to wake up one day. I mean, it's already a disaster. Land. No, it's like you said, they're a place of no hope. I mean, this is just so basic to the to human to human beings is that like you have children because you have hope in the future and you provide your children with that hope. Now you're telling them basically live fast, drive hard, leave a good looking corpse. I've heard that. That's actually a line in a movie. That's what Joe was talking about. That's what you're talking about. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Don't worry about it. If you die, don't worry. There's no heaven. There's no hell. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about having kids. They're just parasites. That's the world we live in. And whether you think it's going to affect you or not out there, listening to us at the front line with Joe and Joe, eventually it will. It already is to a degree, and it's going to get even worse. AJ Benjamin, final thoughts.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it. Let's not forget there's a spiritual aspect to this. And I'll tell you, most teachers I know are people who are trying to be good people who genuinely think that they are doing the right thing for students, even when it's the wrong thing. They are generally doing it for the right reasons. So let's not forget the spiritual aspect of this. We are against principalities and powers, not against flesh and blood. And at this moment in time, those principalities and powers, those lords of the air, have been given great control over us, and they're running with it. Let's not forget that our best power is in prayer, and history is really ruled from the altar.
Thank you for that, AJ. And that means that we have to say our prayers, get to the sacraments, and get out there in the breach and be brave. And we're not just saying it, AJ. You're brave, okay, and you are, because to go against this culture is not an easy thing to do. AJ, where could folks buy the book? What's the title, and where could they learn more about you?
The book is When the Sun Frees You. My website is available from Tan Books, TAN, like you get a tan in the sun, Tan Books. And you can also get it on at almost any bookseller, but if you want to buy directly from the publisher, it's Tan Books. And then you can reach me on my website, all one word, The Silent Night, KNIGHT.net.
AJ Benjamin, you're awesome. Thank you so much for coming back. Yeah. So anytime you want to come on the show, brother, you're welcome. But this is an important conversation. We all need to step up. So thanks, brother, for coming on.
You're very welcome. Thank you both. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. So Joe Resinello, I mean, he's just putting it right out there. Okay. Now we're talking to you here the night before the election. The midterm elections are tomorrow. Joe, this is a major issue. It resonates with people. We mentioned in the interview with AJ, going back a couple of years to Virginia. Okay. This message of indoctrinating children infuriates people, because not only do they push to do it in the teachers unions, the public education establishment, they also do it behind your back. Why, Joe? Why do they do it behind your back? Because they know that you and I and all other parents out there are going to say no. We're going to say absolutely not. You're not allowed to do that. Joe, am I wrong?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think AJ laid it out. He's a teacher. And again, it's not us saying it. I mean, I think he was very balanced and level-headed. And listen, it's up to you. If this is what you want, then vote for it. I don't think most people want it, to be truthful with you. Again, these are minors, and they are your children and my children, and we pay taxes too. And
Well,
we have
that's the infuriating part, Joe Resinello, is when you say, hey, listen, man, no, I'm not taking my kid out of that school. Let's say I send my child to a public school. No, I'm not. I pay taxes. You're not going to force me to pay the taxes, and then I have to pay for the private education, let's say at a Catholic school. You either give me the money that I'm spending, okay? You either let me deduct that from my tax bill, or you get this nonsense out of the reach of my child by either A, abolishing it, which, as AJ said, that might not go over so well because many parents want this. Okay, fine. You can elect to have your child go to that class. I will elect to have my child not go to that class. How's this? Joe, I really want to cheese them off. You could elect for your kid to go to sex education class, and my kid could go to the public school version of a Bible study. How's that going to go over?
It wouldn't at all. But I will say this, the pendulum swings sometimes radically from right to left. I actually think this could hurt the teachers union. If they were thinking in a smart, in a strategic way, they would lay off this, because the further they push this agenda, the weaker that union is going to get. And that's a message to all teachers out there, because this is not resonating with Americans. It's not just Republicans. It's not just religious people. You're not going to tell a dad, whose daughter plays softball, that a boy can play on that team. It's not going to resonate. It doesn't matter whether you're African American, you're Latino, you're white, you're rich, or you're poor. And this is going to weaken the union. And if you ask me, the union needs to be weakened. And if you ask me, that they have too much control, they are our servants. We pay your salaries. They need to start acting like it. And maybe this will begin the process of breaking it down and rebuilding it better.
Well, Joe, you made a very good point. But remember, they're about power. They want to be able to say to you and me and everybody we know who agrees with us, we don't care about your religious beliefs. We have political power and we're going to impose it on you. And again, if you don't want your kid in that public school, then you spend the money, you send them to a private school, but you're still going to pay through your property taxes. That's what they do, Joe. That's what they do. Let's move on. You're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe, we have an election tomorrow, midterm elections. We apologize to our audience at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. We had Jesse Romero in the first segment, very bad connection, but we got the gist of it. Jesse's here in Arizona. I'm there in Arizona. We're getting behind Carrie Lake, Blake Masters, all the Republicans pretty much right down the line, certain number of propositions that are on the ballot. And Jesse's been making it happen here. And Joe, I think Carrie Lake's going to win. In
I
fact,
do too.
I think she's going to walk away in a much larger margin than Quinnipiac or any of the other polls.
I'll
Go
take
ahead,
it
Joe.
another step further, Joe. I actually think she could potentially be a presidential candidate. I actually think she's not right now, but she has the wind on her back. I actually think, Joe, I kid you not, in 2 years, I would not be surprised if she's on that stage.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if she's on the ticket.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, as a VP, would not blink an eye if that happened.
Absolutely. But remember, she's a Republican woman. And I think, Jonathan Ross, if you could cue up the clip we have of The View, okay? And just to give a quick introduction, because this is going to infuriate our audience. And you know what? Unlike the left, the angry left, see, we get angry, but we fight in the battleground of ideas. All right. We don't pick up rocks. We don't pick up bats. We don't pick up guns. No, that's what you do. That's what Antifa does. That's what Black Lives Matter does or did. Okay. That's what you Roe versus Wade gets overturned and you want to bomb abortion crisis pregnancy centers. Okay. What we do is, we get angry. We get angry at the ridiculous things they say, as the hateful things they say. Well, we got a clip of Sonny Hostin that if Joe or I, said anything even remotely similar that this woman said, okay, about Democrat women, they would take us out in Times Square and they would chop our heads off. But Sonny Hostin, because she's a liberal, well, guess what? She can say whatever she wants. So we're going to play the clip for the audience at the Crusade Channel, see what you think.
So surprising to me is the abortion issue. I read a poll just yesterday that white Republican suburban women are now going to vote Republican.
Why?
It's almost like roaches voting for Raid, right?
I think
like they're voting.
No, it's insulting to the voter.
They're voting against their own self-interest. Do they want to live in Gilead?
Okay, so do we love
in the hands?
Do we love democracy or not? Because just saying that it's insulting to the voter.
It's horrible. That's about all I could say. It's horrible.
I just can't imagine how she still has a job. Because, Joe, guess what? I mean, we could see what happens, let's say, in less extreme cases with people out there who just speak the truth about things. They don't call people names, okay? They get canceled. And that's happened now for the last several years. This woman just called white suburban women roaches. She compared them to roaches. Now, when Kanye says things that are extreme or people don't like, guess what? He gets canceled from everybody and others. Sonny Hostin can go on The View and compare, let's say, Republican women to roaches. And guess what, Joe? She's going to wake up tomorrow and she's still going to have a job. And quite frankly, Joe, I really don't want to go tit for tat. I want to see her fired for what she said. You have to make an example of some people. I want to see her fired for what she said.
Well, it's funny. Tiffany Cross, who ran a show on MSNBC, got fired last week because she called Florida the DICK of America.
I saw that, yeah.
And MSNBC fired her for it. Now, this is a similar type of statement. Frankly, you're right, and I agree with you. in a sane civil society, she would be fired. Did you notice as she said it, the smirk on Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg's face as she
Did you
said
say Joy Behar? Like
Or-
I love it because I was just thinking of another word that rhymes with. No, let me stop there. Go ahead, Joe.
No, but just they were like they, got a kick out of it. If you saw their face, ultimately, like I said, I agree with you, but strategically, that was a foolish statement. Joe, this is about turning people and winning hearts and minds to win an election. Insulting people is not the way to do it. Like that is actually, if you ask me, you're basically conceding. That's what a loser does. If you like, that is just strategically that we saw that with Hillary when she called half the country deplorable. That was just foolish. That enrages people. And frankly, that's not helping your cause. If this is what you listen, you could disagree. You could, but let's talk about it. That's not the way to do it. That's the loser. And frankly, they're going to pay for that, if you ask me. Big time, because those people have a beef. And again, what's their beef? If you ask me, crime. Women want to feel safe, Joe. They're not safe. Talk to people in big cities. Talk to people who ride the subway in New York City. They don't feel safe. Coupled with the fact people, as in families, want to eat. They're sick of paying $6,000 out of pocket to maintain two mid-sized cars. They're sick of looking at their grocery bills. They have to feed children, and they're not buying it.
Right.
And calling them roaches isn't going to help your cause.
No.
Like in all honesty, it's just not going to help your cause. And more reason why she should be fired, because she's not shrewd.
I just want to, even aside from that, I don't expect Sunny Hostin to be shrewd. I think she's dumb as a box of rocks. I know, Joe, you don't like when I say things like that, but I do because she's Catholic too. So I say that from a Catholic perspective. She is the poster child for a lack of Catholic formation. Okay, that's number one. My wife, who is not a hateful person at all, and who is not an angry person at all, not like me. Okay, she can't stand her when Sunny Hostin opens her mouth. In fact, I first got this clip from my wife. She said to me, she goes, "You guys got to talk about this," because I just think what I want to focus on is the double standard. Is that how many people would just be absolutely trashed if fired, all right, not allowed to do business with your bank, okay, and don't think it's not coming to that. If they said anything remotely close to that, comparing Republican women to roaches, well, that's like I'm sorry, that's like comparing Jews to rats. That's like comparing African Americans to gorillas. That's racism if you want to talk about it. White women, a black woman gets to say that a white woman is a roach and nothing happens to her. I'm sure Joy Reid will back her up. The other woman that you mentioned from MSNBC, I'm sure she'll back her up. But when are we going to turn around and write to ABCE, whatever station they're on, I guess ABC, and say, fired? I want her fired. I don't want you to talk to her. I don't want you to suspend her. What she said was atrocious and hateful. But nobody's got the stones to do that, Joe. Nobody. And you know that, and I know that.
Well, again, people have to do that by turning the show off. They have to turn.
But they catch it on Joe. You know what happens? They catch it in their feed on YouTube because people share it. Now, again, I know what you're saying. I agree with you. All right. But they catch it in their feed, and because there's a nice clickbaity title, and then people watch it. All right. And that's how you wind up stumbling across it. But I agree with you. You shouldn't be putting on The View anyway.
That's right. I mean, that goes along with a lot of things. Americans don't stick to their guns. To be honest with you, Joe, we don't have discipline. We don't, as a culture, we don't have discipline. It's very simple. Turn it off. And that is how the message gets out. I'm telling you right now, they understand that, by the way. They do it all the time to us. You're seeing that with Twitter. Notice that Elon Musk is asking for $8. Why? Because he knows these advertisers are going to disappear. He needs that money to run Twitter. He's not dumb. They get it. We don't. We just go along and go along. You turn it off. You don't buy the product. Like,
No,
it's
Joe,
that
listen, I
simple.
agree. Joe,
I
I'm
mean,
getting a
that's how it
message.
works. And
Joe,
to
I'm
be
with you.
honest with you, and then people shouldn't complain. We have control. I tell this to my mother when a solicitor calls her. Sometimes she'll be bothered by a solicitor. I'm like, Mom, you're in control of that conversation. You hang it up.
Right, you hang
Why?
it up.
You just hang it up. And that is the end of it.
Joe,
But
listen, we got to let's move on. I just got a message. Jesse's going to come back in about a half hour or so. How long is the Teresa Tomeo clip? Because I think it's an
it's
important one.
12 minutes.
All right, John Ross, let's play Teresa Tomeo.
No, we got Rick
Michigan.
Barrett coming, Joe. He's coming at 10. He should be coming shortly.
All right. Well, we're gonna have Jesse Romero, and we're gonna be talking about everything that's going on in Arizona, the Catholic vote, and everything else. And Rick Barrett, who's with the Crusade Channel. Now we want to encourage everyone. Okay, tomorrow we've been saying for the last few weeks, tomorrow is Election Day. In my house, I have a number of different devices. And we're going to be Rick's actually here. We're going to bring him on a little sooner. We're going to have on the Crusade Channel, and Rick's going to talk about that election coverage from Rick and Mike Church down there. I'm going to see what's going on other outlets, maybe Real America News, see what Bannon's got to say. I'm going to avoid Fox News like the plague. Okay. But the Crusade Channel is doing midterm coverage. We're going to bring in Rick Barrett right now. And Rick Barrett is, like I said, he is a co-host down at the Crusade Channel. He's a buddy of ours. The Barrett Brief Show is hosted by Rhode Island native Rick Barrett. The show follows its theme, the news of the day, and the narrative that will follow. The Lightning Brief Round has become a daily staple for Crusade Channel fans. Rick is certified from the USCCA and founder of The Armed Catholic, an organization dedicated to providing the Catholic community with education and training in the field of firearms. Rick Barrett, welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe, brother.
It is an honor to be here, gentlemen. I appreciate the call and happy to be here.
Rick,
You
tomorrow's
look good,
election
dude.
day,
I
brother.
love the beard, brother. Seriously.
Well, because I don't have any up here, God bless me
mine's
with it
falling
all
out
here.
too. I have the papal hole in the middle of my head. It's
Yeah.
growing.
Yeah,
Joe,
yeah.
you're talking to Rick Barrett and me. You're getting no sympathy. You still have hair on your head.
Yeah, my hairline is back here, so it's, so I have to get it all where I can. So
Rick Barrett, what's going on with the Crusade Channel tomorrow, brother? What are we doing for midterm coverage?
So Mike Church is anchoring. He's calling it Alexorcism, which is election exorcism, because he's exercising the Democrats from office. He'll be anchoring. I will be co-anchoring. We have an all-star panel of people. Mike from Restoring the Faith Media will be joining us. We also have our political affairs correspondent Magdalene Rose will be joining us. We also have the political affairs correspondent for me, Daniel Savekis, will be on. We also have, I believe, Fiorella Nash. David Simpson, Don from the Bronx will be on to do his analysis of the data that's coming in. So we have a lot of great people coming. We're starting at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern time, and we're looking forward to it because election coverage it's going to be interesting.
Needless to say, how about this? How are you guys feeling down there? Again, more on the gut level. We could look at the polls. Obviously, we don't know whether we could trust the polls. I think those Republicans that are ahead are probably ahead by a lot more, like Carrie Lake here in Arizona. Okay, Lee Zeldin, in New York, and others. J.D. Vance in Ohio. What's the feeling down at the Crusade Channel? How are you guys seeing this whole thing on a gut level?
So Mike has a very good feeling that tomorrow will be a good night for Republicans. I have a feeling that here in Texas, we're not worried about it. Beto is going to get blown out by probably 5 points at least. The idea is that, yes, they are trying to prep it with articles about the Red Mirage and all these other things. But at this point, it feels like it's going to be such an overwhelming amount of numbers turning out. I mean, we've already seen record-breaking numbers in places like Georgia to turn out, that it looks like it'll go the way that that most people are talking, as in the Republicans will probably take both the House and the Senate. Definitely the House. The House has already been called. I mean, they gave up on that beginning of this year. the Senate now, it seems momentum is starting to move in the way of the Republicans, not because they're doing anything, but because Democrats are losers at this point. They're just a loser party with Joe Biden at the helm, and they're barking about issues nobody cares about, and they're bringing out Obama, who doesn't want to be there, to try and rally troops. And outside of your true blues, your true believers, nobody really wants to be associated with them. So I don't think they'll try to steal it in places because, evil will always try to do that. But I don't think they'll, outside of a presidential election, there's only one race everybody cared about. That was the POTUS. So you could steal that a lot easier. When you have all these different ones in multiple states, they kind of have to concentrate on one or two. Everybody kind of feels like Pennsylvania is going to be the one. I don't know, because that huge the decision out of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court that they can't count undated ballots or unsigned ballots is a pretty big swing in the favor of somebody like Oz. So we'll see. It looks like it should be in a fair election. This will be an absolute blowout. People would just kind of cursory go to the polls just to make sure it's done. It's really kind of we're all kind of waiting to see what kind of shenanigans pop up.
Absolutely. Joe Arsenello. Well, real quick, if you're just joining us, we're being joined by Rick Barrett, the host of the Barrett Brief on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Rick was gracious enough to join us tonight on the eve of an all-day event down at the Crusade Channel, where there's going to be coverage all day long of the midterm elections. Okay, Joe's going to be watching. I'm going to be watching. Joe Arsenello, what do you got for Rick?
I absolutely agree with you, Rick. I think we're going to win the House and the Senate. Do you think they impeach Biden?
No. The Republicans will make sure that they do nothing, because they're spineless. They've always been spineless. They've always been feckless. They're cowards. You can hate Marjorie Taylor Greene all you want, but girl's a firebrand. I wish there were 200 of her, because things actually get done. Outside of your Rand Pauls or Thomas Masseys and those kind of people, the problem is your leadership. Kevin McCarthy's he's a squish. Mitch McConnell's a squish. They won't do anything in the result because they don't think it's the proper thing. They always fall back on we want to make sure we go with the proper manner and all this other kind of, they stand on ceremony. So no, Joe, long answer to a short question. They don't have the courage to do so. Plus they'll hide behind, well, if we impeach him, it'll look bad and they'll get 2024 momentum, blah, blah, blah. They'll use all kinds of nonsense for reasons not to.
Rick, let me ask you this about a particular candidate that I happen to be. I think we just.
Nope, I'm here. Nope. I'm here.
Rick's there. That I think, at least on the surface, is, I think, a model for what conservative Republicans should be, and that's J.D. Vance. Tell me if you agree with me. And if not, how? Because to me, he is a Roman Catholic. He's from the Rust Belt. He cares about workers. I don't think he pays lip service to it, while also being someone who values the free market, okay, embraces those principles, okay? But he obviously wants moral boundaries, even when it comes to markets, how Wall Street operates, things like that. Is he, you think, a viable model for which way the conservative movement should go? Because guess what? I don't want a conservative movement that embraces the ideas of, what's his name from England? Was it Douglas Murray? That all of a sudden we have to start embracing gay marriage and we have to start moderating on abortion. If that's conservatism, I don't want it. But if J.D. Vance is conservatism, bring it on. What do you say?
Well, somebody like Vance, I always look at with a bit of caution, because yes, he is from the Rust Belt, but he also went to Hollywood to try and get his book into a movie, and he was moving in those circles before he became a conservative Republican. He's a little too much at times for me, and it's only my opinion, as a Donald Trump impersonator, where he tries to do that firebrand Trump kind of style. Now I haven't followed the Ohio race, and because there was a while where we thought he actually might blow it because he was too bombastic. Because the people in Ohio, they're very milquetoast, and I love you people in Ohio. Don't get me wrong. You look at your politicians that you vote for. The governors, they're very milquetoast. Your senators, they're very milquetoast. You don't like drama. J.D. Vance is a lot of drama, so that's why we were kind of worried about that for a while. Now, his policies. If you're telling me he is pro no abortion anywhere in these United States, and he is against sodomy, and he is against all that kind of stuff, I can get behind that. I would be more than happy to support anybody with those, because I think the fact that if you look at the statistics in July and August after the Dobbs decision dropped, I think there are 10,000 fewer abortions in these United States after post Dobbs. That's a win. Here in Texas and states that had those trigger laws, the number of abortions went down to like 10. Of course, the flip side is in New Mexico, California, Rhode Island, all these other places, it went up. So we have to have that fight at the state level. So I am with you in this. I'll say this, Joe, that I am tired of compromised conservatism where we have to have the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten is a fallacy designed to try and be more acceptable, because when you try to please everybody, you can't please anybody. I am all for, yeah, you can call me a retrograde or whatever the case may be. No sodomy, none of that stuff. I would love to see a lawsuit, because Thomas laid it out in his opinion. I think it was on the Bruin case, or was that no? Yeah, Alito did Dobbs, Thomas did Bruin. One of them laid out the case that, hey man, Obergefell was put on the same sketchy background that that Roe was. So if anybody wants to bring that up, we'll take a look at this one too. So I would love to see SCOTUS strike it down. I would be super happy to see SCOTUS strike it down, even just to push it back to the state level. So if that's the kind of policies he's pushing, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I didn't know he was a Catholic either, so that's good too. I mean, I'll always support a guy who's authentically Catholic and not like a Joe Biden Catholic or even like a Paul Ryan Catholic. If he is like authentically Catholic, then good for that. I would like to see that as the model going forward.
We'll see what happens. Like I said, it'll be revealed to us in short order. I'm sure Rick Barrett joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe, we have time for one final question for Rick.
I want to explore a little bit why the Republicans don't act the way they should. And this is my opinion. I'm actually interested in both yours. I've voiced this with Joe P, but to be honest, I think you'll have some insight into this as well. I personally think it's because the elites that give money to both the Democrats and the Republicans that control everything lean left. And the Republicans, like a McConnell, knows just how far he can go. He's actually shrewd. He knows what he can get away with and where he can't, because he needs that money. And if we want Republicans to basically represent a large swath of America, particularly on social issues, particularly on a lot of Catholic issues, we have to get special interests out of it. Special interests, sadly, if you ask me, controls our politics. We are no longer a country of the people. It's a country of interests. And many of those interests have a lot more money than me. And they sway the Republicans, and that's why they don't act the way they do. Your thoughts?
100%. And it's really the Libertarian Party you got to watch out for. Look at a place like the Daily Wire. If you ever listen to Denise McAllister, she used to work there. She talks about the fact that the reason why the Daily Wire is kind of conservative on some issues, but also is very open on others. And they never fully get, they say abortion is bad, but contraception is okay, which we all know it's not, is because the Libertarian Party pours money into the Daily Wire, into the Daily Caller, into Breitbart. And you're right. Mitch McConnell is you don't get to be the majority or the leader of a party by being a fool. You don't. And so he does. And I think where he's put his flag, Joe, is judges. That's where he thinks he can get away with the most. He can be the most effective with the bench, with the federal judiciary, and trying to get as many judiciary judges, which has been, if you've looked throughout the country, it's been very good on a lot of areas. There was a judge in Florida who was the one that got rid of the TSA mask mandate. It was a judge in Florida that did it. Nobody else. So I think that's where McConnell, I will agree with you. He's like, I can't do a lot, but you know what I can do? And nobody really gives me guff about it, is the judges. I'll put all my energy into that. If you like, Mitch loves him, judges and tax cuts. That's what Mitch McConnell lives for. Everything else, he turns to them. I don't really know if I want to do. He don't want to touch any of the other stuff. But I agree with you in that regard that he feels that the interests, and you're 100% right, because they always complain about Citizens United. Citizens United, they benefit just as much from Citizens United as we do. You know, the Koch brothers with their DAC money. Koch brothers give as much money to everybody else as possible. I mean, Trump even said it in Twitter. He's like, I give money to both parties. I give it to the left, they give it to the right. And that way, when I need things, they give it to me. It's fine. That's how I do things. So it's agreed upon with everybody that both left and the right give money to both. Billionaires give it to both sides. Buffett gives it to both sides. Everybody gives it to both sides. So that way, when the Republicans are in power, they get their little strings. When the leftists are in power, they get their little strings. The issue is most, and the problem is they've always said, all the billionaires, like we have this vast cabal of right-wing billionaires that they're all just like, they're all sitting around doing right-wing things. It's like, no, they're all leftists. They all went to leftist institutions. They all walk in leftist bank circles. They all look like the entire banking system is geared towards ESG, the environmental, social, and governmental credit scores, and all that kind of stuff. That guy who runs BlackRock, Larry Fink, that guy's a huge leftist. And that guy made all his money in 2008 when he agreed to buy all the bad stock that was going under during the financial crash. He's like, I'll buy it if the federal government, the Treasury backs all my company. And that's how he became this huge billionaire. He's the guy, and BlackRock's the company that has been single-handedly trying to move companies like Disney and Warner Brothers and all these companies to the left because of your ESG score. If your environmental, social, and governmental score is bad, you don't get the money. You don't get the funds from this company. And the same thing with the politicians. So 100% I agree that it is leftist, and they've constructed the best straw man. Oh, these rich, white, elitist Republican billionaires. There's like 3 of them. And the rest of them are like Mark Zuckerberg, who are 35 on a company that does nothing for anybody. It's a fake company, Facebook, but yet he's a billionaire. And what does he do? He funneled all his money in 2020 into voter causes, voter boxes, voter this, voter that. Same thing with athletes. You know, the old thing with athletes are right wing. Every athlete you knew, the NFL, the NBA, what are they donating their money to? Black Lives Matter and Democratic causes. And they're not having basketball games on tomorrow. And they're opening up NBA arenas so people can vote. We all know what happened at the State Farm Center, which is an NBA facility in 2020. They had a leak, like it was like Titanic, and it was going to sink. So they had to evacuate the State Farm Center, even though there was no leak. And one guy was there just blasting through. He was blasting through ballots when everybody else is out. When you look at all that kind of stuff, of course, but they always have it. Oh, the rich, the Bushes. They always look at the Bushes. Oh, the Bush. Like every rich family is the Bushes, and even the Bushes are right wing. They're as middle milquetoast right wing as possible.
Oh yes, I agree with that, and I'm sick of it. And frankly, I have no time for any of it. Zero.
Rick, let me ask you a question. We're going to keep you a little bit. I hope you don't mind. Maybe
Absolutely,
maybe another few minutes. You brought something up. I think this is an important topic for our audience here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. We're being joined by Rick Barrett from the Crusade Channel. You mentioned BlackRock, so obviously you think Wall Street. In your mind, do you think part of what we should demand of any conservative movement moving forward, as part of what defines us as conservative, is both enforcing antitrust legislation in this country and significant and deep Wall Street reform? What's your view on that?
I say yes to both.
And you know what I mean by Wall Street reform? I mean what you just mentioned.
If you want to give me a little bit, give me what your version of it is.
BlackRock's too big. And companies that, and if you're a person that acquires 10% of a publicly traded company, you do not have the right to go in there and tell that company what to do. You do not have the right to go in there and force the board of directors to do this, that, or the other thing. That in your covenants, in other words, and yes, this would require government action. There are many different ways it needs to be reformed so that the CEO and the shareholders actually have a say over what that company does, and not BlackRock, and not their puppets who they put on the boards of directors of a lot of these companies that then sway the CEO to move in a certain direction, like you mentioned about ESG and all that. That's what I mean by some deep Wall Street reform. They're too big, and they're acting as bad characters, and we need to prevent that from happening.
I agree with you 100%. And we see it in the way that major companies step in and try to force narratives either through diversity boards or all of these other kinds of things. So yeah, I would love to see some kind of restraint. And I know it's a dirty word when we're like, oh, the government's got to get it. And I'm not a ultra free market guy. I'm not. I'm not one of these conservative, like the free market trumps everything. Because the free market, and a lot of people don't like to hear this, the free market version of capitalism is just the other side of the coin of communism. Communism is government run control of things, and capitalism is just free market control of things. It just depends on who's giving you the stuff, the free market or capitalism or communism. So I'm not one of these people that are, and here's the thing, like I'm the kind of guy that wants like a Catholic monarch, right? I would love to go all the way back to that. I think the current system's just completely messed up with the scale is out of balance. The federal government has way too much power. The state of Texas should not have to listen to the federal government. The fact is we have 99 billion, and I'll say that again, 99 billion barrels of oil in East Texas alone. Okay, we have this diesel shortage, this energy shortage. We have enough oil, natural gas in this state to power the entire country for 100 years, easy. Yet we got to sit back to bumbling idiot in the White House and his merry band of Jezebels who are telling us we can't do this because Mother Earth has 10 years left or some kind of Gaia nonsense. No, Texas should be able to open up and pump as much oil as we want and give it to you guys in New Jersey, Arizona. You guys, I love what Kari Lake's going to do. You guys should have like a 40-foot concrete wall with Gatling guns on the top to make sure nobody comes in your if you want to do that to secure your border, not have bumbling Joe Biden be like, no, that's not how this goes. I would like restraints on all things, but to go back to Wall Street and the fact that money is such a valuable asset for these people in power because they use it to control speech, they use it to control policy, they use it to control behavior. I would like to see that restricted a lot more as well.
Absolutely. Joe Rossinello, anything else for Rick Barrett from your end?
Tell us a little bit about what you do with the Armed Catholic as well as the new podcast. I like that news from the pew. I saw that, Rick. I thought that was fair. Honestly, I think you got something there. It's good group of guys. And I think people are going to follow it. Tell us a little bit about that.
First of all, I was honored. It's all Steve Cunningham. He sent me a message on Facebook one day. He's like, I'm doing a show and I'd like you to be the host of it. And I typed back, I'm like, are you sure you got the right guy? I'm like, you sure you got the right guy on this? So I'm honored to just be a part of it with him and Fawaz Yazzie and Jonathan Arrington and Ryan Grant when he can. And just I'm very honored to be even in the conversation with such very well-spoken men of deep Catholic faith who have so much to offer, and to be the host of it, and to kind of, I was on with Fawaz a couple minutes ago doing a get to know series. I'm just a point guard on that show. I'm just throwing up alley-oops to all these guys. I'm not doing much. Like, all right, Fawaz, answer this question. Steve, answer this question. John, and I don't really have to do anything. So I'm very honored that they make me look good because it's definitely not anything on this end. But the Armed Catholic is something that I started 2 years ago and I just did a talk at the St. Benedict Center this year called Applying Catholic Social Teachings to Justified Self-Defense. You can download the MP3 up there. And I have always been a guy who loves guns, and I've always been the kind of guy that's constantly had to be like, no, you can use firearms. Guns are okay in self-defense as long as you use moderation and proportional force. And having to always argue with moms and liberal women and priests and others going back and forth with priests who want to like pray rosary outside of gun manufacturers because they equate it to the same as abortion because there's a huge swath of priests and prelates who are left and they think guns are just as they'll speak out against guns but not against abortion or immigration. So I started the Armed Catholic for two reasons. A, I love guns. I love God, and then I love firearms. That's like my jam. And secondly, I think a lot of men in Catholic circles kind of just take what their wives yell at. Like, guns are bad. You shouldn't use them, and they're evil, and they kill hundreds of children every year. And the guy's like, fine, whatever, I don't care. And so I've been to a couple places. I'm USCCA certified. I'm in the process of getting NRA certified. Please don't hold that against me. I'm doing it so I can do CHL classes here in the state of Texas. That's the requirement. I know some of y'all don't like the NRA. I'm not a huge fan either, but it's the hoops I got to jump through. And my goal is I've gone to parishes. I'll do USCCA courses. You can check out thearmedcatholic.com. Things like just, violent outcomes and their aftermath, defensive handgun techniques, all these kinds of things that the USCCA does. Next weekend, I'm going up to Fort Worth and I'm doing I'm sitting in on a seminar on church security. And I do that as well. I do a course on church security if you want to talk about that. And I really want to have men and women take their defense seriously, because the Catholic Church, going back to 1566 in the Council of Trent, mentions self-defense. And people try to equate that self-defense was fine until the firearm was created, and then the firearm somehow outranks God and God's teaching on self-defense, which is completely and utterly ridiculous. As long as you are a good Catholic and good standing and you have a good handle on your faith and you understand how to use your firearm, you can use a firearm. And yes, it means an AR-15 or a shotgun or a pistol. If somebody breaks into your house, then nobody has the right to take your life. Love of life is a supreme commandment of the Catholic Church. If you're pro-life, that includes love of your own life. And so that's my big thing, is to try and teach people and go there. And we're actually in the process, when I say we, I've said it twice, I'm in the process of creating it as a nonprofit for 2 reasons. I'm going to go the nonprofit route with the Armed Catholic. One is I'd like to fundraise for 2 reasons. There's only 2 reasons I'd like to fundraise from the Catholic community. One is to continue my training, because training is expensive. If you want to go and train with the best firearm instructors, shotgun instructors out in Arizona, Joe, there's this place called Gunsight. It's one of the best firearm training facilities in the world. Now, if you want to take a shotgun course there, it's $1,800 for 5 days. So you got to pay. But at the same time, I want to be the best instructor for people when they ask for my service. And the second thing, the big thing to go with this nonprofit route and to fundraise and ask the Catholic community to support me, $10 a month, whatever it is so I can go to a diocese and not have to argue about money. So if Joe says in Arizona, hey, I'd like you to come out, do a couple classes, walk around our church, give us some things that maybe we're missing, points of entry, I can be like, that's cool, because I can do it for free. You guys can make a donation if you'd like, but because the Catholic community has raised enough money, the flight, everything is paid for. I'm going to come out there and we can just focus on doing it. So it's hopefully this idea of subsidiarity. I'm not taking a dime from it. I'm not living off of it, because I have other things. I work with Stinger USA. I work with the Crusade channel. That's how I make, provide for my family and stuff. The money raised for the Armed Catholic is exclusively for training for me and for training for Catholic communities. So that's the goal I'm trying to take with the Armed Catholic going forward. It's like a Black Guns Matter, if you guys heard with that, Maj Toure, but for Catholics. That's really the 15-second elevator pitch.
And Rick, where could our audience members support you? Where could they go to show their love?
You can go to thearmedcatholic.com and just bookmark it, because it's got a bunch of things. It's got teachings from the magisterium. It's got quotes from popes, Pope John Paul II, Pope Pius XII, in regards to self-defense. It's got my classes. You can bookmark that. You can also follow me on Instagram, The Armed Catholic. And if you really like what I had to say during this, you go to the Crusade channel, crusadechannel.com, become a member. I have a show from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern every day. And I'll be doing election coverage tomorrow with Mike.
Absolutely. And we're going to be tuning in. Rick Barrett, brother, thank you for coming on the front line with Joe and Joe.
Thank you so
Always
much,
a
Rick.
pleasure talking to you, Rick.
Gentlemen, thank you. Always happy to come by. Talk to you soon.
God bless you, bro.
God bless, guys.
So yeah, Joe, I think that's important, because I think one of the things that Rick is doing, with as far as the guns are concerned, teaching safety and responsible gun ownership, it goes against the narrative that you hear all the time. So we applaud him in that. Certainly, Joe, we're going to be tuning in tomorrow on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com for election coverage. Now we're going to stay in election mode. I believe Jesse's going to be joining us in a little bit, but I want to keep it moving, Joe, if that's okay with you. You did a clip the other day that I think is important for us to show our audience here at the front line with Joe and Joe, talking about a particular proposition in Michigan. And you had a conversation with Teresa Tomeo. So I'm asking Jonathan to cue that up. okay, John, if you would. And let's play the clip with Joe and Teresa Tomeo discussing a very important issue.
We got Teresa Tomeo on the line from EWTN and Ave Maria Radio, which is located in the great state of Michigan. Teresa is the host of Catholic Connection on Ave Maria Radio. She's syndicated all over the United States from Hawaii to Maine. Teresa, welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe.
Joe, always great to speak with you. Thank you again for another opportunity.
Oh, thank you. Let's talk about Proposition 3, which is being voted upon in Michigan tomorrow. This is a very important piece of legislation.
Yeah, it's so crucial. And what's so important is that this is going to affect the entire country, because right now, the pro-abortion organizations, including Planned Parenthood, ACLU, and others, are looking at this as ground zero. Michigan, under even Roe v. Wade, with legalized abortion, Roe v. Wade gave us legalized abortion through 9 months of pregnancy, we know. But Michigan was always able to build up and maintain very good pro-life laws, protecting especially women when it comes to regulations at abortion facilities. For example, we have a 24-hour waiting period. We have a measure that prevents women from being coerced into abortion, where they have to be screened. And we have other regulations on these facilities. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to get this very pro-life state of Michigan to conform to their idea of all abortion all the time, everything plus the kitchen sink. This is not only about abortion, this is about transgender surgery, this is about birth control. And a huge part of this, in addition to protecting women, Joe, is about parental rights being under attack. So they are throwing in everything into this amendment. The good news is, but we still need a lot of prayers, and we still need people in your audience, if they know someone in Michigan, to pick up the phone and to put the word out there to make sure they vote no on Prop 3. The good news is the church, especially the Catholic Church, but the church, the entire body of Christ, has risen to the occasion, very similarly to what happened back in 1998 when we had an assisted suicide measure that was on the ballot, pushed by Jack Kevorkian's team. He was called Dr. Death, of course, as you recall. And the church got together back then under the direction of our former Archbishop, who's now retired, Cardinal Maida. He brought together all the different religious organizations, faith groups, and many people in the laity, such as disability groups, who are very concerned about this. And they stood up, and within about 2 months, just as we're seeing now, they were able to really close the gap. And we defeated that assisted suicide proposal handily. We are seeing the gap closing in, a lot of people becoming aware, but I'm so proud of the Christian community across the board, Catholics, Protestant, Lutherans, everybody joining in, just like we do at the March for Life every year, and saying no to this radical, confusing, and extreme amendment. So I'm hopeful.
Teresa, talk about the parental rights issue, because I got 2 daughters, and here's the funny thing about this. You can't give a kid an aspirin in public school without getting parental permission. Now you're talking about letting a kid get an abortion without telling their parents. Focus in on that, because I really think people can relate to it.
Right. Currently, there are laws on the books in Michigan right now where if a minor wants to seek an abortion without her parents, she can go to a judge and she can seek basically what they call relief, legal relief, and go ahead and get that abortion. But now the teen or the child wouldn't even have to do that. They could go on their own, and they would be allowed to do anything, not only abortion, but get access to birth control, hormone blockers, all kinds of other things pertaining to their reproductive, quote unquote, rights, as the left calls it, right? So this is what's so scary. The amendment actually says, if you look at it, and I encourage people to go to supportmiwomenandchildren.org. That's Support Michigan Women and Children, but supportmiwomenandchildren.org for the details. If you look at the amendment, the full amendment isn't even on the ballot, but if you look at what's on the ballot, it says every individual in the state of Michigan. So there's no age limit on that. What does that mean? Then it goes on to say that any laws affecting this constitutional amendment will be made null and void if Prop 3 passes. So parents won't have any recourse. And the other thing that's really horrible, especially for women, they're always talking about reproductive health. It's a definite case of projection, because in the case of women's health, they're going to be, as I mentioned earlier in the start of the interview, Joe, wiping out all these protective measures that we have that help women. If, for example, they have, God forbid, a botched abortion, they still have a way to go after the abortionist. And you don't even have to be a doctor to do abortions under this proposal. You can be a midwife or a nurse professional or someone entitled to this name of health professional, which has a very wide description under Michigan's health code. But the parental rights thing is really what I think is getting so many people's attention, because Okay, if you're pro-choice, and this is what Father Frank Pavone was saying, you're not going to be able to convince someone within a few weeks. Now we're, right down to the bottom line, with the election being tomorrow. You're not going to convince someone in just a few weeks or 2 months that they shouldn't be supporting abortion. Have a conversation now about, look, if you are pro-choice, women are going to be hurt by this, children are going to be hurt by this. This is too extreme, and it pushes abortion all the way through 9 months of pregnancy and even supporting infanticide. And the viability of a child that's born in a botched abortion is going to be left up to the health professional. It's just so scary and so far left of where most people are, even if they consider themselves pro-choice. It's just off the charts, really, really frightening, Joe.
You're right. And I'll tell you what, we have to take back the language. To be pro-life is to be pro-American. We as Catholics aren't Democrats or Republicans. We're Catholic. We identify with life. We identify with Jesus Christ. And our life has to be seen through that lens. I think we have to put down those hats. We're not Republicans. We're not Democrats. We look at issues, and this issue is so stark. And to be honest with you, to be a good Catholic is to be a good American. And all these things you're talking about, Teresa, they're not communicated in the media. And that's why people like yourself and people like Joe and I have to be out there. This is the job of every baptized Catholic to speak the truth in the public square. If we don't do it, Teresa, no one's going to.
Right, exactly. And now we have to understand that God, I was talking to Father John Mercado recently from Michigan at a conference we both spoke at, the Good News Conference with Bishop Barron. We were talking about all the craziness in the world and how important this election is. And he says, we have to remember that God does have this, but in the meantime, we're not supposed to be inactive. Well, we believe that the Lord is still Lord and he is still on his throne, but he's given us gifts. He's given us a vocation. Each of us are called, as you said, by virtue of our baptism, to evangelize. And part of that evangelization is to inform people about these things that are morally wrong, right? That are grave sin, especially if you're Catholic. And I think what's super important is the fact that we understand, we trust, we pray, but we keep moving. And that's why, again, I'm so proud of our church. There were so many efforts. For example, just this past weekend, we had a huge prayer rally in the Diocese of Saginaw, which, if you're looking at Michigan as your hand, it's in the thumb area. There's a wonderful bishop there, Bishop Bruce, who joined forces with other churches around the area, Protestant churches. There are a number of Catholic churches also that got involved. They had a major prayer rally called Fight Like Heaven prayer rally, built on Bishop Boyer from Lansing's theme of his 54-day Rosary Novena, which ends tomorrow on Election Day, which was called Fight Like Heaven. Every day they sent out this great e-blast and gave you something to pray for regarding the election on that particular day. Started on September 15th with our feast day of Our Lady of Sorrows and ending tomorrow on the Election Day. And Joey, I don't know how many people are signed up for this now. When I talked to the bishop a few weeks ago in Lansing, Bishop Earl Boyer, he told me he thought they had about 14,000 people signed up to pray this 54-day novena. So that has just taken off like crazy. Churches around the state have picked up on that theme, Fight Like Heaven, because our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, who right now is neck and neck with the pro-life candidate, Tudor Dixon, by the way, so pray for that situation. Before the election began, she said she was going to fight like hell, believe it or not, fight like hell to preserve abortion rights in Michigan. So it's so important that all Catholics know that even though this is in Michigan, this affects everybody, because ACLU, Planned Parenthood, all these big pro-abortion leaders are looking at Michigan as at ground zero. If they can get it passed in a strong pro-life state that has maintained really good pro-life laws over the years, then they're going to go into every other state, as many states as they can, to make this happen.
Teresa, I just want to pick up on one point. I know you're very busy, but you're talking about the need for prayer. As Catholics, we love everybody. We're not fighting against people. We're fighting against ideas. And ultimately, prayer changes hearts and minds. Many of these people are wounded. Many of these people, frankly, are confused. And I'm not saying that I have all the answers, because God knows I'm flawed, but we have to pray. My parish is doing a rosary rally from my town all the way like 10 miles, like in the opposite direction. People have to pray. We have to witness our faith. People have to see our joy. People have to see Christ lived out in the square. And when they do, hearts and minds will change. You know, we have to speak the truth, but ultimately, a lot of times, Teresa, it's like throwing a rubber ball against the wall. People just tune us out. They have to see our life. They have to see Christ living in us. And that is coming through the sacramental life and prayer. And you hit it right on the head what that bishop is doing in Michigan. There lies the answer. That's how we change hearts and minds.
And again, your point as well, the prayer and also the love. When we're challenging people, we do it lovingly. We don't, I mean, you and I are 100% Italian, so we're very emotional when we are.
Oh, my hands are going as we speak.
My hands are going too, right? But when we talk with someone, we sit down and we have a conversation. What I like to do is I like to ask questions, and someone says, well, I'm worried that this is going to, put women back to back alley abortions. And my question is, well, first of all, why do you think that? Just the opposite is true. Wouldn't you want, no abortion is safe, obviously, for the baby or for the woman, but to talk and to get, understand where these people are at. To say, okay, if that's what you're concerned about, we get it. But under this law, all the regulations that are there to protect women, including seeking, let's say, filing suit against a doctor or someone who performed a botched abortion and hurt the woman gravely. I mean, the family would not have any recourse to go after these abortionists. And so you just kind of meet them where they're at and talk to them lovingly and say, hey, if you have any questions, here's some information, but give them the facts and ask questions about it. Well, I know you're pro-choice, but do you believe in abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy? Most people are stunned by that because most pro-choicers, the surveys show, do not believe in pregnancy through 9 months. Well, how do you feel about parents being involved in a decision? If you have children, would you want your child to get any type of medication or medical advice or input without your consent? Absolutely not. 9 times out of 10 parents would say that. So just to ask questions and understand maybe where they're at. They may not be at a religious perspective, but showing love to them and giving them the information. I think that's what's winning a lot of people over, because from what I'm seeing, the door-to-door activities, like my husband Dominic has been out several times doing campaigning. It's been really encouraging. He said most people have actually been very, very nice, even if they disagree with you. I think it's the way we approach it. You don't yell and scream at people. You meet them where they're at and say, here's the information. This is crucial. Even if you're pro-choice, and obviously we want people to become pro-life, but you need to think about this because this is a constitutional amendment. It's a constitutional amendment, and it will take forever, if it's even possible, to change it down the road. So I think we have to lead with love. Always remember, as you said, that people are wounded, but to let them know that the Catholic Church is about Jesus, is about the dignity of the human person, and that we love them because everyone is a son or a daughter of God.
Teresa, that is so spot on. I know you're super busy. I want to thank you for your witness, for coming on this show. We always have your back. Count on our prayers. And remember, we are Catholic. Our identity is we are baptized children of God. Get out there and vote like a Catholic. Thank you all, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, so that conversation with Teresa, Joe, is spot on. I mean, they're you get a state like Michigan. I don't know how on earth a state like Michigan, as she said, is more of a pro-life state, and yet they have a governor like Gretchen Whitmer. Okay, but in the meantime, they're making it happen, and they're doing it the right way. What do you think, Joe?
100%. 100%. It's a radical piece of legislation. And a lot of times those type of pieces of legislation are hidden from people. The message has to go out. It has to be clear. It has to be articulated. And most people, I think, will see to it that doesn't pass because it's too far off the ledge.
Well, listen, let's hope. John, do we have Jesse? Do we have Jesse Romero, John Ross? You're with us here at the Frontline with Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello. We're weighing the breach on the night before the election. I think we lost Jesse Romero. We unfortunately have been having some connection problems tonight, so we definitely apologize. But Joe, we talked to a lot of people this week. I mean, from AJ Benjamin, Teresa Tomeo, as we just aired. Hopefully Jesse will click back in before the end of the show and we can get his perspective because he's been really, really, Joe, tireless here in Arizona. Trying to get Carrie Lake elected here, who, funny enough, I went to the conference Catholic for Catholics. All the 5 major people to vote against Joe here in Arizona are all self-identified Catholics. I mean, there is such a problem with that, whether it's Katie Hobbs, whether it's Mark Kelly, and a few others. It's you got to shake your head. You call yourself Catholic, and you've bought into this crazy disgraziato agenda. All right, so and as we were just saying, we were having a few connection issues, but we have Jesse Romero back. And Jesse, I don't know if you heard me. I was just telling the audience, you've been tireless, brother, tireless. You know I'm not blowing smoke. It's just a fact is a fact, okay? And you're out there and you're trying to spread not a political message. I think that's the important part of it, okay? It's a Catholic message, which is manifesting itself in these political battles, in this culture war that we're in, taking place in Arizona. What's your take on the state of the election for tomorrow? Like I said, you've been all over the place. Catholics for Catholics, you co-chair with John Yep. I came to the event, saw you there. Bannon showed up, was really happy to see Steve Bannon, flew across the country to come and address. What's your take on the whole thing? I see a lot of enthusiasm, Jesse Romero. I see a lot of enthusiasm.
I've never seen so much energy on our part, and I'll tell you why. Because most people around the country, they're looking at their grocery bill, kitchen conversation issues, gasoline, rent, the fact that houses are unaffordable for their kids. You're even seeing Democrats themselves, the liberal Democrats, they don't even want Biden to come in and shill for them in their state, to come in and campaign for them. They're bringing their secret weapon, Barack Obama. But here's the way I see it. I see the race right now. It's between a party that wants to push normal issues and a party that's gone nuts. What do I mean by that? Transgenderism? Are you kidding me? Sex reassignment surgery, mutilate people's perfect body parts. What? Medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, defund the police, Antifa, Black Lives Matter. Look at, as Catholics, we don't live in heaven. That's the goal. We live on planet Earth. I look at politics like a football field. So it's like we want to make a touchdown for Jesus. Well, there's two teams out there. You as a Catholic, because you live on planet Earth, you have a body, you have to attach yourself to one of the two teams to move that football, called the culture of life, down the football field and make a touchdown for Jesus. Well, let's just be honest. Every time the Democrats are in power, we get thrown back 10 yards, 15 yards, 20 yards. We lose yardage every time they're in power, like the last 2 years. Am I saying the Republican Party is the answer? No, Jesus is the answer. The Republican Party, they're just a tool of human beings that seem to track in terms of the moral issues, the life issues. They seem to track, they're congruent with the Catholic Church's teachings. The Catholic Church is the moral voice on planet Earth, not the Republican Party. The Republican Party just seems to get it right on this issue. And so when they're in power, because they're congruent with Catholic social teaching on the moral issues and on marriage and on family and on children and on life, we can advance the football 5 yards, 10 yards, 15 yards. Again, I'm not saying they're the perfect party. There is no perfect. The only perfect party is Jesus and Mary, and they're not running for office because he's already God, and that's our Queen Mother. Other than that, you got a bunch of sinners you got to vote for, so you have to find out which pair of sinners or which party of sinners is going to do, as Father Chad Ripperger says, the least amount of damage to our cause. And quite clearly, the Republican Party, voting for them and their party platform, which is congruent with Catholic teachings on the life issues and on marriage, they're going to do least damage to our cause. And in fact, actually, they'll do something positive. Let's just be honest. We've been rattling Roe versus Wade for how long? Since 1973? So what happened? What happened? A Protestant president, in an interview, he says, "Oh, I'm going to appoint Catholic judges." And they asked him why. He says, because they have a great legal mind. So who does he appoint? 3 justices, 2 are Catholic. 1 was a Catholic, and now he's an Episcopalian. Gorsuch is Catholic. Amy Coney Barrett is Catholic, and the other one was Catholic. He's now an Episcopalian. Well, guess what? it's now the Catholic majority that overturned Roe versus Wade. Protestants know that. Protestants all over the country, they've been telling me to go, Jess, you Catholics defeated Roe versus Wade. You Catholics are the ones that have been out there in abortion clinics since 1973, praying your rosaries and standing in front of the culture of death in opposition. And so this is what happens when you get a Catholic majority. Again, a Catholic majority in the Supreme Court. What did we get? We toppled Roe versus Wade. And by the way, they happen to be Republican. Once again, look at both teams like a football field. When the Republicans are in power, we Catholics can advance the football towards the touchdown, which is the culture of life. When Democrats are in power, look at the last 2 years.
Jesse, I just want to talk a little bit because I'll be honest with you. That is such a sane message. And that's one of the reasons why we love you. I mean, honestly, it's sane and it's regular. And that's how we have to articulate it. Talk about what you talked about on Fox News. There are 5 things intrinsically evil, which means they are evil at all times, no matter what. You see, I think a lot of Catholics, and you know, we're both in the same business. You know, we're trying to form people. Sadly, a lot of us out there, and listen, you don't know what you don't know. So I'm not going to yell and scream at you. You don't know what you don't know. But there are issues that are more severe than others. And I don't know if people understand that fact or the ramifications and the ripple effects of those issues downstream in our society. Could you break that down for people? Because I think if they understood that, they could understand a little bit where we're coming from, why we always hang our hat on those issues, and why you cannot vote for a Democrat if you're a practicing Catholic. I'm so glad you said that, because it's not that we don't like you. Your issues go against the teachings of Jesus Christ and his church.
Absolutely. Well, let me go through I'm helping out the Carrie Lake campaign here in Arizona. I'm part of Cops for Carrie Lake. I'm part of Latinos for Carrie Lake, and I'm part of Catholics for Carrie Lake. So I'm part of 3 committees. In fact, I just came from one of the rallies right now. Let's talk about Cops for Carrie Lake. This whole defund the police is crazy. I'm going to tell you the communities that actually want more cops and not less cops. Those are Black communities. We call them ghettos. And Hispanic communities, we call them barrios. Those people that I'm in contact with all the time, they want more cops. They are pro-cop. Why? The only ones that are pro-cop there are the crooks, which is, when I was a cop, I worked a high crime ridden community, East Los Angeles. Guess what? Our record of police reports demonstrated that every single year, 3% of the population in East LA committed 95% of the crimes. The same 3% of which means what? 97% of the Hispanics in East Los Angeles, that big barrio east of Los Angeles, are law-abiding citizens that just want to go to work and go to church on Sunday. That's the same in the Black community. It's 2 to 3% of the population that commit all the crime. Most Blacks, most Hispanics want cops. They're pro-cops. Now, let's talk about the cops. The cops are definitely behind Carrie Lake, and they're behind Donald Trump. Why? Because they're pro-law enforcement. They were pro-law and order. Cops are law. People join police departments and sheriff's departments because they want law and order. You know how difficult it is to know that your city managers, the mayor, they want to defund your department. Cops are leaving by the busloads. And I got 2 sons that are young street cops. They work the night shift in big cities. They say, Dad, we've lost half of our staff. It takes us an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to a 911 call. And they still feel, I told them, I said, you know what? I wouldn't think any less of you if you resigned and found another job. They go, no, Dad, this is my calling. This is what we have to do. But the average street cop out there is horrified by the Democrat establishment and what they've done to law enforcement. They've defunded state law enforcement and demonize them, and morale is at an all-time low with street cops. And what have they done to federal law enforcement? They've turned them into a Gestapo. Now let's move into the third hat that I wear. Catholics for Kerry Lake. The Catholic Church has a body of teaching where the Catholic Church says these are lines that you can't cross. In other words, there are parameters. As Catholics, we can agree or disagree about all kinds of policy issues. Should we have higher taxes, lower taxes? What about Social Security? Should we let the government run it? Should we privatize it? Those are issues that good Catholics can pound the table and disagree on. But the church says when it comes to the life issues and the issues that touch on the sanctity of marriage, Catholics got to toe the line. Because this is the perennial teachings of the church that's speaking. This is what I call eternal Rome. Goes back all the way to the 1st century. And what are those 5 non-negotiables? A Catholic cannot support in any way, shape, or form abortion, or a politician or a party that supports abortion, so-called homosexual marriage. Cannot cross that line. You can't support a person or a party that supports that. Euthanasia, which they call mercy killing or physician-assisted suicide. And then the other 2 have historically been embryonic fetal stem cell research and human cloning. Unfortunately, we've pretty much lost the battle on those because those are being practiced on a wide scale. How do we know that? Because of Project Veritas, because of David Daleiden, and all these undercover videos that they've been making, talking with Planned Parenthood doctors. They've been experimenting with human cloning and embryonic fetal stem cell research for decades. And so there's a 6th non-negotiable that most people don't talk about, but it really should be up there. And it's called religious liberty. What does that mean? You as a Catholic can't vote for a person or a party that violates anybody's religious liberty. Is that being done? The Democrats are doing that all day long. The FBI has been going and arresting people like attack dogs, pro-life dads with a bunch of kids at their house, homeschooling their kids, coming to their house like if they're kicking in the door to Chapo Guzman from the Mexican cartels with AR-15s. And also under the Obama administration, what did we see under his administration as well? Going after nuns who didn't want to fund contraception in the hospitals that they managed and served. What else did we see under the Obama administration as well? We saw them going after Catholic charities and other Catholic nonprofits that are working with adoption agencies. Catholic charities are saying we can't allow our kids to be adopted by homosexual or lesbian parents. The Obama administration closed those down in many places over in Washington, Baltimore, Maryland. So they go after Catholics. The Democrats go after Catholics when they're in power. Okay, that's the 6th non-negotiable, religious liberty. And I'll tell you, when the Republicans are in power, we have freedom, and we have freedom of expression, freedom of thought, religious liberty. I'm going to tell you another thing that's going to happen. Mark my words. With these 87,000 new IRS agents, Biden is going to send them after a whole lot of people. You and me can be included in that. Podcasters, people on radio, people like Father Pavone. I mean, there's a whole list of people out there that these 87,000 IRS agents are being trained to use weapons and to be used as attack dogs. Mark my words. They'll be going after Catholics and evangelicals that are pro-life all day long if we don't remove this monster out of office.
I agree with you, Jesse. Jesse, we could go on for a very long time. I want you just your final thoughts. How you feeling about tomorrow?
I see a red wave about as red as the blood of Jesus, because I'll tell you one thing, not only is our side energized because we've seen this country change in 2 years like we've never seen it before. And I think I've seen a lot of people of faith, patriots and conservatives, they're awake. They're not woke. They're awake. They're saying, what? What are they teaching in my kids' school? What are they doing in hospitals? This mutilation. And so people now across the country, I've seen in my family, people that were apolitical are like, call me up. Hey, Jess, I want to vote for the Republican Party. They're the party that supports us on the life issues and marriage issues. Hey, can I see your voting card? I'm seeing this for the last couple of weeks. I'm getting phone calls and texts and people on social media that are contacting me saying, hey, you've been saying this for years. Now you make a lot of sense. I'm not voting for the Democrat Party, the party of death. I understood. Yeah, this is a party that that basically has betrayed the Catholic Church. This is not the party of John F. Kennedy or Robert F. Kennedy or Scoop Jackson. That party's gone. That party's gone. This is a new party that's been hijacked by Hollywood, the LGBTs, the Soros, Bill Gates, the medical marijuana community, the Mexican cartels, the pornography industry. All the leftist Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all the leftist whack jobs have taken a bite out of the Democrat Party, and this is a party that's unrecognizable.
Absolutely, Jesse. Absolutely. I will just say from personal experience, I was very encouraged. I was talking to a buddy of mine that I work with. He's Mexican American, first generation. Okay. And I asked him very quietly, I have to be careful about talking about politics at work, but I said, dude, let me ask you a question. I said, are you going to go out and vote? He goes, Joe, he goes, traditionally, I mean, it sounded like, Italians and Irish from years ago. He's Mexican American. He goes, Joe, traditionally we voted Democrat. He goes, dude, I can't vote for these people. So I'm going out and voting for Carrie Lake. I said, God bless you, brother. God bless you. Jesse, we got to let you go. But we just want to applaud you. You've been doing really, like I said, you're just out there. You're tireless. You're fighting the good fight. Joe and I try to, we're in the backbench with you. We're here to support you any chance we get, anytime we get. I was happy to run into you at the Catholic for Catholics to say hello. That was a great conference. And let's hope for let's pray for a great outcome tomorrow, Jesse Romero.
Amen. Well, let's do a Hail Mary for the elections. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners,
now and at the hour
of our death. Amen.
And pray for our country. God bless America, we beg you. Saint Joseph, terror of demons, pray for us. Saint Michael, Saint Raphael, Saint Gabriel, pray for us. All you holy angels and saints of God, pray for America. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Jesse, God bless you, brother. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
You got it. God bless you guys. Keep up the good work.
Peace.
Thank you, man.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, Jesse's just out there making it happen. I'm glad we were able to get over the connection issues and get him on here at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. This has been a great show. Joe, do you have time? Do you want
Dude, let's play Mike McDonald, brother.
Yeah, let's end the show. Joe and I did a clip earlier today. The Catholic League for Civil Rights has been doing it for decades. Bill Donahue, the president and CEO of the Catholic League, they expose anti-Catholic bigotry, but more importantly, they expose a lot of the atrocities that the left proposes, primarily the left, okay, that affect all people, not just Catholics, okay? So we were honored to have on the communications director from the Catholic League earlier today. We recorded a clip. We want to play it for you. And we think it's going to be a great message. And then we're going to end the show with that. So stick around. We got Mike McDonald right now. All right. So we're at the front line and we're discussing the Catholic vote. The Catholic vote is going to be very important tomorrow, as we keep repeating. Okay. Mike, we're joined by Mike McDonald from the Catholic League, okay? And we want to talk about the Catholic League's perspective on the Catholic vote, because this is important. Our faith manifests itself through the culture war, through the political battles, and all of it, okay? And we need to have as much information as we can. Mike McDonald has served as the Catholic League's Director of Communications since August of 2020. In this role, he's written several major reports, has made numerous appearances on television and radio, and hosts the Catholic League Forum. We encourage everybody, by the way, to subscribe on YouTube, right, Mike, to the Catholic League Forum?
Yes, it's on YouTube. Great little segment we do pretty much every Friday. Highly recommended.
Absolutely. So we want you to do that. And prior to joining the Catholic League, Mike worked in the Trump administration from 2017 to 2020 in various positions involving communications and faith-based outreach. So Mike McDonald, thanks for joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe, brother. We really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me on, Joe. Really excited to talk about this. This is a midterm election, but has a lot of significance, especially for Catholics. As you're mentioning right now, the country is bogged down in the middle of perhaps the biggest culture war of my lifetime. I was born in the 90s, and things were bad then. But since Joe Biden got in as the president, things have gotten significantly worse. We're seeing it on two big fronts, abortion and transgenderism. And they are driving the narrative today. If you've watched any politics at all for the last 6 months, Democrats have been hoping that they can make a bigger issue out of abortion as a real wedge issue to try and advocate for the destruction of innocent human life as a way to turn out voters for the Democrats, which as Catholics we should find appalling. Not only the practice of abortion, that should go without saying, but to then use the destruction of innocent human life for a political advantage as a cudgel to use against Republicans, that should be deeply disturbing. And then you also have the transgenderism, which the Biden administration has bought into wholesale. They are pushing this left, right, and center. You pretty much can't go anywhere. There's different facets to both of the abortion and the transgenderism. But as Catholics, we believe these are wrong. And without a good Congress, without a good Senate that can start pushing it back, and particularly governors like Ron DeSantis in the great state of Florida, my home state, that can actually do things on the state level to tell the feds, to tell Washington, to tell Biden, enough is enough. We need to get back to good, wholesome values that made America great in the first place. And so we need some strong leadership in Washington to do that. And the promising thing that we've been seeing here, guys, is that in a lot of these key battleground states, the Catholic vote is swinging away from the Democrats. Now, that's mostly being driven by economic issues. EWTN, Real Clear Politics, they had a poll out last week, I think it was, showing that the economic issues are driving Catholics. And it's very important to keep that in mind, that a lot of Catholics are coming around on the economic concerns. But as for us at the Catholic League, we don't really get involved in economic policy. And so we would just encourage that as everyone is, making up decisions on who they want to vote for based on the price of gasoline, groceries, all hugely important to the average day American, but to also keep in mind some of these culture war issues, because they are just as important. And frankly, once, leadership changes in Washington, we get inflation under control, we're still going to have the culture war issues. They're hugely important. They're destroying human dignity, human life, and we really need to focus in on those.
Absolutely. Mike McDonald is joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello, and we're discussing the Catholic vote all night tonight. That's what we're talking about. We're getting the Catholic League's perspective from Mike McDonald. Joe Rossinello.
Did you hear, Mike, last week NPR ran a woman having an abortion? Did you see that clip?
Yes.
I guess they're trying to normalize it. I guess that was their idea behind it. It's my guess. I mean, I'm not in their head, but obviously that's their one issue they're basically trying to sell the public on. Joe, did you see that, Joe P?
I did not. I listen, it's nauseating enough what's going on. I'm kind of glad I didn't see that one, Joe Rossinello, but go ahead.
No, I mean, what are your thoughts on it? I just can't believe, there was a time where abortion has gone on, for a long time, but this is not something you're proud of.
Right.
And now, not only are they not, you're proud of it, you're broadcasting it to people. What are your thoughts? I thought that was off the hook.
Yeah, no, this does speak to the depravity that certain elements of the Democratic Party have. They're rejoicing in the slaughter of innocent human life. And just like the way that they talk about it in the abortion clinic on that clip is nauseating. It does almost kind of sound like, especially the way NPR is framing it, that abortion, childbirth, they're roughly the same thing. It's okay. It's a mother involved either way. So this is good. And it's just sickening to try and normalize this. Right. In the 90s, Bill Clinton was up there. It's safe, legal, and rare. There's no such thing.
Oh, that's gone.
Yeah. Well, there never was such a thing as a safe abortion for the innocent child. And even for the mothers involved, the women involved, the abortion industry doesn't like talking about that, but there are significant health risks, which is why, one of the things that the Republicans always try and push for, or admitting procedures that the clinics have to be able to admit right away to a hospital. things like that, because they know this is actually a very dangerous business to begin with. Rare that this is a sacrament for the secular progressive left. So they don't want to make it rare at all. And legal, that's pretty much the only thing. So, they're batting 1 for 3 there. I guess that's good enough to put you in the Hall of Fame, but these people are just terrible in what they're pushing, trying to normalize the slaughter of innocent human life, to turn it into a wedge issue, to try and get people to vote on it. And, the sad thing is, we've been seeing this trend in politics for a while that, okay, sure, there's about a third of the country that are Republicans, a little bit more are Democrats, and about another third are independents. But everyone's kind of set in their ways, partisan-wise. So even if you're an independent, you're going to vote Republican, you're going to vote Democrat. Down the line, Republicans vote Republican, Democrats vote Democrats. So it is just about now getting out the people that are going to vote for you. And this should say something about the Democratic Party, that they think the best way to get the biggest support, the biggest base that they can get out there, is to focus on the slaughter of innocent life. That should say something about Democrats. And as a Catholic, it really should make you think twice about if you want to be associated with people that are just that far gone, that far depraved.
Mike McDonald's joining us here at Frontline with Joe and Joe. Mike McDonald is from the Catholic League. Mike, one thing I've always valued about the Catholic League is underlying it all. You, Bill Donahue, the founder, or the CEO, is the attentiveness to language, the language that's used by the left, okay, which we don't pay attention to enough, okay? Why are conservatives, Mike McDonald, so bad at using the left's language against them? Let me give you an example, and I love your comments. I'm in Arizona now, okay? And I've been seeing ad after ad after ad for the last 90 days, okay, against Carrie Lake and Blake Masters and Nancy Bartow, who's the local representative here, is totally pro-life. And they're extreme. That's the word I want to focus on. They're extremists. Blake Masters is too extreme. Mark Kelly gets on a stage and basically says, I agree with Roe versus Wade, okay? And that's what I want. And Roe versus Wade allows for abortion up to the moment of birth. And why are we so afraid to say, who's the extremist, dude? Who's the extremist? You got, okay, granted the media is on their side, okay? The media is, part of their army, all right? But why are we not using the correct language when it comes to them? Dude, yeah, okay, fine. I'm an extremist. I'm pro-life. I'm an abortion abolitionist. But you're not? You're not an extremist? Mike, what's the disconnect there? Why are we afraid to use the language we're supposed to be using? Let's keep it with abortion, particularly on abortion.
No, let's. I think you're absolutely right there. And if I could take an opportunity to give a little hat tip to Bill Donahue, the president and CEO of the Catholic League, who is not afraid to shy away from these. He gets right into the mix of it every single time. And it's very great that for the Catholic community, we do have a great fighter like Bill. But that is, I think, the fundamental problem is conservatives at large are afraid of getting into fights. They're worried about, when I was in Washington, it always infuriated me. People in Washington are always worried about the next election. There's no thinking of, well, we won this election. What can we do with the power that we have to make changes on even the pro-life? Like, well, we don't want to defund Planned Parenthood because, well, that might get people upset with us. And we might lose another election on it. Thank goodness we did have Donald Trump in the White House, who did have the courage to say, we might not be able to get this through Congress, but we're going to redo Title 10 laws, Title 10 rules at Health and Human Services. So this way we're not giving money to those people. Which is great. We need more people with backbone like that, but there are just too many wimpy guys, I think, on our side that are afraid of fighting. They're too concerned about, well, we might alienate someone. And unfortunately, we're seeing this to some degree in the Catholic Church. Some people just, well, our goal is to just save as many souls as possible, so we don't want to alienate anyone, even if that means we have to shy away from certain truths. Fortunately, most of the bishops in this country are very good on this. USCCB have been very strong on this, but in the laity, there is a little bit of softness on this. But speaking of the Catholic League and some of the things we've been doing, We just did a survey, and I would encourage your listeners to go check us out on CatholicLeague.org. We've got a survey up that we did for the 60th anniversary of Vatican II. And one of the things that the laity are actually hungry for, I think it's about 74% of the laity are hungry for hearing from the priest at the altar to speak out on these moral issues. So, as good Catholics, we do look to the bishops, we look to the priests to give us some guidance, because frankly, a lot of these things we're seeing here are crazy. Like transgenderism is bad, but to what extent it's out of hand is very hard for the average person to understand. Even on abortion, yes, we all understand abortion is bad, but as Joe was pointing out, you got clips on the radio of a abortion happening, and the Democrats, the liberals, the secular progressives think that's okay, that's normal, that's good, that's natural, that's healthy. So, we do need to have some informed leadership, some informed discussions on this to get people in the fight, because unless someone's willing to provide that air cover, a lot of people are just, going to shy away and just focus on the economics issues, which again are very important. But, once you get the right leadership in there, those economic issues will go away, but we're still going to have the culture war.
I'm going to hand it over to Joe. You know what I would do if on day one, if I was the president of the United States, on day one, because I have the power to do it, because it's part of the executive branch, NPR, PBS, all public radio and television is defunded and dissolved. They're just another arm of the Democrat Party. They don't represent all sides equally. They show an abortion. Well, why don't you show what happens when a woman gets rushed to a hospital after a botched abortion? How's that? I would defund them immediately. Probably have time for one more comment or question. Joe Resinello.
Mike, I think the problem is, like, I grew up here in the New York, New Jersey area. I know Bill, he's a quintessential New Yorker. I mean, and we love him. But we know what that's like. And what I mean by that is this. I'm Italian, Bill's Irish. When our families came here, they were Democrats. They were Democrats. We were guys that worked on the railroad. We were working in the unions. We were cops. We were firemen. And this is something I hammer home all the time. Two things. One, we're Catholic. We don't have a political affiliation. We look at issues. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I look at issues. That's number one. Number two, this is not the Democratic Party of your Irish grandfather who was a cop.
Yeah.
It isn't. It's not the Democratic Party of the Italian grandfather who worked on the railroad. It isn't. This is a radicalized group of individuals, and people can't get that through their head. They can't get it through their head. The last great Democrat, Bob Casey of Pennsylvania, gave a great speech at Notre Dame saying basically that he was pro-life. That, in my view, was the last great Democrat. We are so far from that. And speak to that, because I think that's where we have to win hearts and minds. We have to talk to people, because I've talked to good Catholics. It's baked into their head. Oh, I'm a Democrat. Oh, I'm a union guy. Well, guys, this is not your party anymore.
I want Mike McDonald from the Catholic League to comment on that. But what's funny, what ran through my head when Joe said they're so far away from Bob Casey, they're so far away from Bill Clinton. If you really wanted, because you mentioned safe, legal, and rare, Mike McDonald, they're so far away from Bill Clinton could not get elected president as a Democrat right now. That's how far gone they are. I wanted to throw that in because that's what the thought ran through my head. Go ahead, Mike. We got about a couple minutes left, so have at it.
Yeah, no, you guys are absolutely right on this. The Democratic Party is not even the party of Bill Clinton anymore. They have gone completely off the rails. This is not the party of the early 20th century, late 19th century that welcomed in the Irish, the Italians, the Eastern Europeans, and tried to get them on their feet, help them along. Like even today, right? The Democrats have this notion of they're very kind to the Hispanic immigrants that are coming up from Mexico. A lot of them are getting smuggled into the country by cartels that essentially make them work in slavery. The cartels are also smuggling in drugs that go into these poor income communities that kill people, literally kill people. How many people, we heard about the truck with the 50 migrants in it over the summer. But that was just because that one was found, right? There's a lot of evidence that the Democrats are underreporting on the number of immigrants that are dying crossing the border. So it's very hard for me to take that seriously, that the Democratic Party cares about the immigrants. The Democratic Party has essentially become the party of the well-educated elites. Their pretty much campaign ads speak just like radical student activists manifesto for changes on campus. The only thing is, difference is they don't complain about missing classes, but otherwise it's essentially the same thing. They want girls to be boys, they want boys to be girls, unlimited abortion on demand. All of these things that, as Catholics, we consider very important. We're made in the dignity of likeness of God. But the Democrats have completely thrown that away to appeal to the upper class. And that's probably why, if you look at a lot of the campaigns that the Democrats have been pushing, they've been focusing on abortion. That is their final argument in the 2022 midterm elections. But they're not talking about inflation, because that hits the working class, that hits the union guy, that hits the cop, that hits the fireman. Those are the people most affected by it. People in the upper classes, it's that classic George H.W. Bush clip in 92. I don't know how much price for a gallon of milk is. Who knew we had scanners? Who knew we had scanners in grocery stores? These are the people that order all their groceries online. They order their Uber online. These people don't have any real contact with the real world. They've never worked with their hands a day in their life. Everything is just all abstract and thought, and haven't actually done anything. And that is the point, I think, as Catholics, we need to drive home when we have these discussions. Just leaving aside how crazy the Democrats are on abortion, on transgender, how they don't care about the economy. The reason why they don't care about issues that impact you and care about all these sort of radical left-wing hippie ideas is because they've abandoned you. They've left you behind. They don't care. And that doesn't necessarily mean you become a Republican tomorrow. The Republicans, there are definitely a certain strand of Republicans out there that only care about, they're standing in the country club, tax cuts, taking care of big producers, and they don't care if they ship their jobs to China. I'm not saying necessarily you become a Republican, but as Catholics, I think we need to do a much harder job of evaluating the candidates and where they stand on the key issues that do matter. And keep in mind that the Democratic Party has completely abandoned any sense of sanity. That's
I was going to say, you hit the nail on the head, Mike. Joe and I say on the show all the time, they're a party of psychotics. These rich liberals, they are psychotic. We have to leave it there. I do want to say, though, transgenderism, as Joe Rossinello says on the show all the time, is a loser, because that involves children. So you could look at Virginia a couple of years ago for that. All right, see how that would over. And the great thing is, abortion as an issue for them is showing itself on the heels of this election tomorrow to be a loser for them. And we'll have you back on the show, Mike or Bill, to talk about why abortion's a loser and break it down more. But in the meantime, where can folks, our audience, can they learn more about the Catholic League, Mike, your YouTube channel, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, definitely check us out on CatholicLeague.org. Go to our main website. That's got everything. We got presence on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Every week we do the YouTube video, Catholic League Forum, and we'll just post that right on the front page of the website, so you don't even have to hunt through YouTube. Just go to CatholicLeague.org. Everything will be there. And definitely check out the forum. That's always a great video. Bill Donahue always mixes it up once a week, just about. So it's really good. Definitely check that out. We're in the fight. Any help that you can give. And we also have the tools to help you get involved in the fights. If there's a way that we can let our members know, our leaders know, our readers know how to get in contact with people if you're upset about companies funding abortion, the transgenderism, any sort of anti-Catholic display, we always have a contact information for anti-Catholic bigotry. So definitely check out our website, get involved. Because this is going to be a long fight. And, the Democrats, just to wrap it up here, are essentially running on mutilating children through transgenderism, murdering children through abortion, and they don't actually care at all about the economy. So they hopefully, by this time next week, we'll have a much clearer picture of where things stand. And hopefully we've got some good, honest, God-fearing people in positions of power that we can begin to take this country back and get back to the principles that made us great.
Absolutely. I would encourage everybody out there, go on the Catholic League, hit the subscribe, put in your email. I get emails from the Catholic League every single day, and I find everything that they send to me in my inbox to be valuable and things I need to know as a Catholic in America. Mike McDonald, you're welcome on the show, brother, anytime, and we hope to have you back soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, guys. Thanks again for tonight.
Thanks.
Fantastic conversation.
I mean, like really just kind of says it all, when he says what the Democrats are running on. We'll end tonight, Joe Resinello. Remember, and again, I don't like Joe. I don't like being critical of those who vote. I don't want to do what they do. I'm not going to call them stupid. I'm not going to call them names. That's what they do to us when we vote for Donald Trump, or here in Arizona when I'm going to vote tomorrow for Carrie Lake or Blake Masters. I don't want to do that. But I would ask the person, do you have the information about what the Democrat Party stands for? Because Mike McDonald just outlined it. They're right now, this party on both the national level and on the state level is for mutilating children and killing babies in the womb. Those are their two biggest issues. How does a person who's worried about the price of milk vote for that? If you know where I'm going. And I don't want to, Joe. I don't want to be critical. But one has to ask themselves, what are you possibly voting for these people for? They're against you as a regular American. You see that in gas prices and the prices of going to the grocery store. And yet they want to ram this radical agenda down your throat and mutilate your child behind your back. Joe, I'm going to give you the final word. This has been a phenomenal show. I'm going to give you the final word.
What I would say is, just to piggyback off of what you just said, they do not represent the middle class. They simply do not. They are steamrolling you, particularly on the economic side of the house. They are steamrolling you, whether you're black, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Catholic, or whether you're an atheist. And you have to get it out of your head, as Mike put it so well. This is not that party. It is not the party of JFK. It is a radicalized party. And as long as the Democrats are radicalized, the middle class should abandon them. And that, most assuredly, should include Catholics.
Joe, couldn't have said it better myself. Great way to end the show. We do want to thank, this was a great lineup. Very proud of this show. I feel you, Joe. You remember, you're a football fan. I'm a football fan, at least to the degree we were before they got woke. Okay. There's always the guy on a big play that takes one for the team. Okay. He's blocking on the other side of the field while you're opening up a play over here. You and me were that guy over there. Nobody, you know what I'm trying to say? What we're doing is important. We're not the guys that scored the touchdown. Okay. But what we did helped on the play that helped us to win the game. And that's what we all need to get through our head. You and I, Joe, right now at this level, we're doing what we can. We brought on some people who are really on the front line. Jesse Romero. Okay. AJ Benjamin, the guy's teaching in the public school, talking about transgenderism. That could get him fired. He's got 3 kids. Okay. Teresa Tomeo out in Michigan doing her thing. You got Mike McDonald, Bill Donahue's had his neck on the line for the last 40 years going against the left and the outrages. Okay. So this was a great lineup. This is a phenomenal lineup. And we got to just end it by saying, go out and vote tomorrow. Vote against these people. They're not on your side. They're not for you. They're not for your family. They're not for God. All right. They're not for any of it. And they're showing that in their policies. So Joe Resinello, great job tonight. And thank you all out there for joining us on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember, go to the Crusade Channel tomorrow, all day coverage of the midterms. Mike Church, Rick Barrett, who was on the show today. I forgot, Joe, to mention Rick. Rick was on the show. All right. He'll be doing coverage tomorrow, and stay away from the mainstream media. That's just going to be discouraging. Go vote. Open a bottle of wine, sit down, watch the results. Joe, I think it's going to be a red wave. What do you say?
I would agree.
All right. So we're going to leave it right there. CrusadeChannel.com. Go there, subscribe, become a member. We know you're going to want to. Thank you for joining us at the front line with Joe and Joe. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.